The moment Brianna Mitchell stepped through the frosted glass doors of the 72nd floor, she knew something felt wrong. The reception area gleamed with polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. Everything was too pristine, too quiet, too expensive. She clutched her worn brown portfolio against her green blouse and wondered if she'd gotten off on the wrong floor. A woman in a crisp red suit appeared from behind a curved white desk. Her smile was professional but knowing, as if Brianna was expected. "Miss Mitchell? Please come right this way. Mr. Blackwell is waiting for you in his private office." Brianna's stomach twisted. The job posting had said to report to Human Resources on the 71st floor for a personal assistant position. This definitely wasn't Human Resources. The woman gestured toward a hallway lined with contemporary art pieces that probably cost more than Brianna's entire apartment building. "I think there might be a mistake," Brianna started, but the woman was already walking away, her heels clicking against the marble with purposeful rhythm. Left with no choice, Brianna followed. Her mind raced through possibilities. Maybe they'd moved the interview location. Maybe this was some kind of test. She needed this job desperately. Her mother's medical bills were piling up, and the hospital had started making pointed comments about payment plans and insurance limits. She couldn't afford to mess this up by seeming confused or unprepared. The woman stopped at a set of double doors made of dark wood. She knocked twice, then pushed them open without waiting for a response. "She's here, sir." Brianna walked into an office that could have housed her entire apartment twice over. One wall was completely glass, offering a view that made her dizzy. The other walls displayed modern art and built-in bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes. In the center sat a massive desk made of what looked like a single slab of white marble. And behind that desk stood a man who made Brianna forget how to breathe. He was tall, probably 6'3", with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on magazine covers. He wore a navy blue suit that fit him perfectly, and when his gray eyes landed on her, Brianna felt like she was being assessed, catalogued, and filed away in seconds. His expression was cold, clinical, devoid of any warmth. "So you're the one my grandmother chose?" he said. His voice was deep, controlled, with an edge that suggested he was used to being obeyed without question. "I expected someone different." Brianna blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Don't apologize. It's not your fault." He walked around the desk with measured steps. "My grandmother has always been sentimental. I suppose she thought someone with your background would be more malleable, more grateful." The words hit Brianna like a slap. Background? Grateful? What was he talking about? "Excuse me, but I think there's been a confusion. I'm here about the assistant position," the job posting said. "The arrangement has been finalized," he interrupted, his tone suggesting the conversation was over. "I won't pretend this is a love match. We both know what this is. A business transaction. You get financial security. My family gets the alliance they need. Everyone benefits." Brianna's heart was pounding now. "I really think you have me confused with someone else. My name is Brianna Mitchell. I applied for a personal assistant job. I was supposed to go to the 71st floor, but I think I got off on the wrong." "Miss Mitchell." He said her name like it was something foreign on his tongue. "Or should I say my future wife? Let's not play games. My assistant confirmed your arrival 30 minutes ago. The paperwork from your family was filed last week. Everything is in order." The word wife made Brianna's knees weak. This couldn't be happening. This was insane. "I don't have any paperwork. I don't know what you're talking about. I just need a job. My mother is sick and the hospital bills." "Exactly." He cut her off again, returning to his desk to pick up a folder. "The arrangement includes a substantial signing bonus. Enough to cover any financial difficulties. Plus a monthly allowance that should more than meet your needs. In exchange, you'll attend social functions, represent the Blackwell name appropriately, and maintain the appearance of a happy marriage for the duration of our agreement." This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Brianna looked at the door, calculating if she could make it out before things got worse. But the woman in the red suit was standing there, blocking her exit, still smiling that knowing smile. "I'm not who you think I am," Brianna tried again, forcing herself to stay calm. "Please just check with your Human Resources department. I submitted an application 2 weeks ago for an administrative assistant position. Entry level. $15 an hour. That's what I'm here for." For the first time, something flickered in the man's cold gray eyes. Doubt maybe. Or irritation. He opened the folder on his desk and scanned whatever was inside. His jaw tightened. "Margaret," he said to the woman by the door. "Get Jonathan on the phone. Now." Margaret pulled out her phone with practiced efficiency. Within seconds she was speaking in low tones. Brianna stood frozen in the middle of the office, her portfolio clutched so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. She wanted to scream, but her voice had abandoned her. The man, Mr. Blackwell, apparently watched her with those calculating eyes. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut, ready to snap. Brianna could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Margaret finished her call. "Sir, Jonathan confirms that Miss Clarissa Wu was scheduled to arrive this morning at 10. She sent a message saying she'd be delayed until this afternoon due to flight complications from San Francisco." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mr. Blackwell's expression didn't change, but something dangerous entered his eyes. "Then who is this?" "I've been trying to tell you," Brianna said, finding her voice again. "I'm Brianna Mitchell. I applied for a job on the 71st floor. I must have gotten off on the wrong floor. This is just a terrible misunderstanding." Mr. Blackwell stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. It wasn't a warm sound. It was dry, almost bitter, like someone who'd forgotten how to find genuine humor in anything. "A misunderstanding," he repeated. "You accidentally walked into my private office. Margaret accidentally assumed you were my arranged bride. And I accidentally offered you a marriage contract worth several $1,000,000. He sat down in his chair, looking at her with something that might have been amusement if his eyes weren't so cold. "Tell me, Miss Mitchell, do you make a habit of spectacular mistakes, or is today special?" Brianna felt her face grow hot. "I'm sorry for the confusion. I'll just go." "Sit down." It wasn't a request. The authority in his voice made Brianna's body respond before her brain could protest. She sank into one of the white leather chairs facing his desk, still clutching her portfolio like a shield. Mr. Blackwell leaned back in his chair, studying her with renewed interest. "So you need a job. Your mother is sick. Hospital bills. Let me guess, you've applied to dozens of positions with no luck. You're probably 2 months behind on rent. Maybe 3. And you walked into this office by accident on the same day my actual bride-to-be happens to be running late." Each word felt like he was peeling back her skin to look at her bones. Brianna wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong, but the truth was he'd just described her life with uncomfortable accuracy. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "That's an interesting question." He tapped his fingers against the desk, a rhythmic sound that filled the silence. "The real question is, what do you want, Miss Mitchell? Because in about 3 hours, I have a business dinner with my grandmother and several potential investors. They're expecting to meet my fiancée, the woman I'm supposedly madly in love with, the woman who convinced me to finally settle down." Brianna shook her head. "The real woman will be here by then, right? This Clarissa person? Clarissa Wu, daughter of Wu Enterprises. A match made by our families when we were children." His voice held no emotion. "And no, she won't be here. Her flight doesn't land until 8 tonight. The dinner is at 6. Then postpone it." "I can't. These investors are flying in from London specifically for this dinner. If I postpone, I lose a deal worth $200 million. If I show up without a fiancé after telling everyone I'm engaged, I look unreliable. Wait. In my world, perception is everything." Brianna started to understand where this was going, and the understanding made her want to bolt from the room. "No, absolutely not. You can't be suggesting 3 hours of your time. 1 dinner. You smile, you act appropriately impressed by me, and you let my grandmother believe that love conquered my cold heart." He named a figure that made Brianna's breath catch. "That's what I'll pay you for 1 evening. Enough to cover your mother's immediate medical expenses. Enough to buy you time to find actual employment." The number echoed in Brianna's head. It was more money than she'd seen in her entire life. More than enough to pay the hospital, catch up on rent, buy groceries for more than a week. Her mother could get the treatment she needed without Brianna lying awake every night wondering if the hospital would refuse service. But this was crazy. Pretending to be someone's fiancé? Lying to his family and business associates? What if someone found out? What if the real bride showed up early? "I can see you thinking," Mr. Blackwell said. "Let me make this simpler. I need someone for 1 dinner. You need money desperately. This is a business transaction, nothing more. You come to the dinner, you play your part, and afterward you walk away with enough money to solve your immediate problems. Or you can walk out that door right now and hope the next job interview goes better than this one did." Brianna looked at him, really looked at him. Despite the cold exterior and calculating words, she saw something else. Loneliness, maybe. Or resignation. Like he'd stopped expecting anything real from life and had learned to settle for transactions and arrangements. Her mother's face appeared in her mind. Weak and pale in that hospital bed, trying to smile whenever Brianna visited, pretending she wasn't in pain. The bills that kept coming. The phone calls from collection agencies. The fear that lived in Brianna's chest every single day. "One dinner," she heard herself say. "That's all." Mr. Blackwell smiled and it didn't reach his eyes. "One dinner, Miss Mitchell. Welcome to the Blackwell family. Temporarily. Have you ever made a choice so desperate that it changed your entire life? What would you do in Brianna's position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to see how this impossible situation unfolds. Would you take the money or walk away? The next 2 hours passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Margaret whisked Brianna away to what she called the preparation suite, which turned out to be an entire floor dedicated to personal styling. Brianna found herself surrounded by racks of clothing, a full glam squad, and a woman named Patricia who sized her up with expert eyes. "We'll need something elegant but not overdone," Patricia murmured, pulling dresses from the racks. Mr. Blackwell's grandmother appreciates classic style. Nothing too modern or flashy. Brianna sat in a plush chair, still trying to process how her simple job interview had spiraled into whatever this was. Her phone buzzed in her purse. 3 missed calls from the hospital. Her chest tightened, but before she could check the messages, Patricia was holding up a dress in deep burgundy. "This one. It'll complement your complexion beautifully." The dress was stunning, made of silk that caught the light as it moved. Brianna had never owned anything so expensive. She touched the fabric carefully, afraid she might damage it somehow. "I can't afford." "Everything is covered by Mr. Blackwell," Margaret said from where she stood by the door. "Consider it part of the arrangement. You'll need appropriate attire for this evening." The word arrangement made Brianna's stomach twist. This wasn't real. She was playing dress up in a world that didn't belong to her, pretending to be someone she wasn't, all for money she desperately needed. The guilt sat heavy on her shoulders, but every time she considered backing out, she thought about her mother. Patricia ushered her into a changing room. The burgundy dress fit perfectly, cinching at the waist and flowing to just below her knees. When Brianna looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked confident, elegant, like she belonged in fancy restaurants and business dinners with billionaires. A makeup artist arrived next, then a hairstylist. They worked with quiet efficiency, transforming Brianna into someone she'd never been. Her natural curls were styled into an elegant updo. Her makeup was subtle but flawless, emphasizing her eyes and the curve of her cheekbones. When they were finished, Brianna stared at her reflection and felt like she was looking at a stranger. "Perfect," Patricia declared. "Mr. Blackwell will be pleased." That's what this was really about, Brianna realized. Not her comfort or her feelings, but whether she could convincingly play the part Mr. Blackwell needed her to play. She was a prop in his business theater, carefully dressed and positioned to achieve the desired effect. Margaret returned with a small box. "Put these on. They're on loan from Mr. Blackwell's personal collection." Inside the box was a diamond necklace that probably cost more than Brianna's mother's entire medical treatment. Her hands shook as she lifted it out. "I can't wear this. What if something happens to it?" "Nothing will happen to it," Margaret assured her. "Just follow Mr. Blackwell's lead tonight, smile when appropriate and let him do most of the talking. His grandmother can be perceptive, so try to appear genuinely fond of him. Appear genuinely fond of a man who'd looked at her like she was an interesting problem to solve." Brianna fastened the necklace around her throat and tried not to think about how wrong this all felt. When they finally brought her back to Mr. Blackwell's office, he was standing by the window looking out over the city. He'd changed into a dark gray suit with a white shirt that somehow made his eyes appear even more striking. When he turned and saw her, something flickered across his face. Surprise maybe. Or appreciation. "You clean up well," he said, and it wasn't quite a compliment but wasn't quite an insult either. "Thank you," Brianna replied because she didn't know what else to say. He crossed the room to stand in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. It was subtle, expensive, the kind of scent that probably came in bottles with French names. "We need to get our story straight. My grandmother will ask questions. We need to appear cohesive." "How did we meet?" Brianna asked, falling into the strange script they were writing together. "A charity gala 3 months ago. You were there with friends. We talked about literature and discovered a shared love of classic novels. I asked you to dinner the next day." The lie flowed from his lips so smoothly that Brianna wondered how often he did this. How often he constructed false narratives for business purposes. And then what? I courted you properly. Flowers, dinners, long conversations. You challenged me intellectually. Made me see the world differently. After 2 months, I realized I couldn't imagine my life without you. I proposed last week during a private dinner at my home. It was a beautiful story. Romantic even, and completely fabricated. Brianna tried to memorize the details, but her mind kept wandering to the real story. The truth of her standing in his office by accident. The desperate need for money that made her agree to this deception. What about the ring? She asked, noticing her bare left hand. Mr. Blackwell pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring that took Brianna's breath away. A sapphire surrounded by diamonds set in platinum. It caught the light and threw blue fire across the walls. Family heirloom, he explained, taking it from the box. It belonged to my great-grandmother. My grandmother will recognize it and know I'm serious. He reached for Brianna's hand. His fingers were warm, steady as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, which seemed impossible, like the universe was playing some cosmic joke. Brianna stared at it, this beautiful lie on her hand, and felt tears prick her eyes. Hey, Mr. Blackwell said, and his voice was softer than before. Are you okay? I'm fine, Brianna lied, blinking back the tears. This is just overwhelming. If you need to back out. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. No, I need this. The money, I mean. For my mother. Something changed in his expression. The cold calculation melted slightly, revealing something almost human underneath. What's wrong with her? Brianna hadn't expected him to ask. Personal questions didn't seem like his style. But the gentleness in his voice made her answer honestly. Cancer. Stage 3. She needs treatment that her insurance won't fully cover. The hospital has been patient, but they're reaching their limit. If I don't pay soon, they'll stop her care. Mr. Blackwell was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. What's the hospital name and your mother's patient number? Why? Just tell me. Brianna recited the information, still confused. Mr. Blackwell made a quick call, speaking in low tones she couldn't quite hear. When he hung up, he looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. The bill is paid. In full. Including future treatments. Brianna's world tilted. What? No, that's not, you can't just. I can and I did. Consider it part of our arrangement. You play your role tonight, and your mother gets the care she needs. No more collection calls. No more worrying about the hospital cutting her off. It was too much. Too generous. Too good to be true. Brianna's vision blurred with tears she couldn't hold back anymore. Why would you do that? Because I can, he said simply. And because you need it. This isn't charity, Miss Mitchell. You're providing a service. I'm compensating you fairly. Think of it as a signing bonus. But it felt like more than that. It felt like kindness, which didn't fit with the cold, calculated man she'd met earlier. Brianna wiped her eyes, careful not to smudge her makeup, and tried to find words adequate for what he'd just done. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means. You can thank me by making my grandmother believe we're madly in love, he said, and the walls were back up. The businessman returned. The car is waiting downstairs. Shall we? He offered his arm. Brianna took it, feeling the solid warmth of him through his suit jacket. As they walked toward the elevator, she caught their reflection in the glass walls. They looked like a real couple. Elegant, matched, perfect. If only it were true. The car was a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. A driver held the door open as Mr. Blackwell helped Brianna inside. The leather seats were impossibly soft. Classical music played quietly from hidden speakers. Everything about this moment was surreal. Nervous? Mr. Blackwell asked as the car pulled into traffic. Terrified, Brianna admitted. Don't be. My grandmother is actually quite kind. She'll love you. Because I'm playing a part in your business transaction? He looked at her sharply. Because you're genuine. Real. That's rare in my world. Brianna didn't know how to respond to that, so she looked out the window instead. The city passed by in a blur of lights and people. Somewhere out there, her mother was in a hospital bed, receiving treatment that was now paid for in full. Because of the man sitting next to her. Because of a choice made in desperation. Can I ask you something? She said. You can ask. I may not answer. Why are you going through with an arranged marriage? You're rich, successful, presumably capable of finding someone to love you for real. Why agree to this? Mr. Blackwell was silent for a long time. Brianna thought he might not answer at all. Then quietly he said, Because love is a luxury I can't afford. My business requires stability, alliances, strategic partnerships. An arranged marriage provides all of that without the messy complications of emotions. It's logical. Clean. It's lonely, Brianna said before she could stop herself. His gray eyes met hers, and for just a moment she saw past all his carefully constructed walls. Saw the boy who'd grown up with everything money could buy except genuine connection. Saw the man who'd convinced himself that transactions were safer than trust. Yes, he agreed. It is. The restaurant was located on the top floor of a building even taller than Mr. Blackwell's office tower. A private elevator took them directly to the entrance, where a maitre d' greeted Mr. Blackwell by name. Your party is already seated, Mr. Blackwell? Right this way. As they walked through the restaurant, Brianna was intensely aware of every step, every breath, every small detail that could give her away. The other diners watched them pass with interest. Several nodded at Mr. Blackwell, who acknowledged them with that same cold politeness he'd used with her earlier. The private dining room was at the back, separated from the main restaurant by elegant screens. When they entered, Brianna saw 5 people seated at a round table covered in white linen. But her attention immediately went to the elderly woman at the center. She was small, with silver hair pinned up elegantly, wearing a royal blue dress with pearl jewelry. Her eyes were the same gray as Mr. Blackwell's, but where his were cold, hers sparkled with warmth and intelligence. When she saw them enter, her face lit up with genuine joy. Harrison, she said, standing with surprising grace. And this must be the young woman who finally captured my grandson's heart. Harrison. That was his first name. Somehow, knowing it made him seem more human. Less like Mr. Blackwell, and more like a real person with a real life. Grandmother, Harrison said, leading Brianna forward. May I present Brianna Mitchell? Brianna, this is my grandmother, Eleanor Blackwell. Eleanor took both of Brianna's hands in hers. Her grip was firm, warm, her eyes searching Brianna's face with an intensity that made her nervous. My dear, you are even more lovely than Harrison described. Come, sit next to me. I want to hear everything. As they settled into their seats, with Harrison on Brianna's other side, Eleanor introduced the rest of the table. 2 investors from London, sharp-eyed men in expensive suits who assessed Brianna with professional interest. And 2 more people Brianna was surprised to learn were Harrison's younger brother and his wife. Nice to meet you, the brother said. His name was Tyler Blackwell, and unlike Harrison, his smile reached his eyes. He wore a bright green tie that somehow worked with his charcoal suit. Harrison's been very secretive about you. We were starting to think you were imaginary. His wife, Melissa, laughed. She wore a lovely yellow dress and had kind eyes. We're just glad he finally found someone. He works too much. Someone has to keep the company running, Harrison said, but there was no bite in his words. Just resignation. As dinner began, Brianna found herself relaxing slightly. Eleanor asked gentle questions about her life, her interests, how she and Harrison had met. Brianna stuck to the story they'd created, embellishing slightly when it seemed appropriate. Eleanor listened with rapt attention, occasionally squeezing Brianna's hand or smiling at Harrison with obvious approval. I knew when I saw that ring on your finger, Eleanor said, touching the sapphire gently. This belonged to my mother. Harrison's great-grandmother. It's only given to women the Blackwell men truly love. The guilt hit Brianna like a physical blow. This woman believed the lie. Believed that her grandson had found real love. Believed that Brianna was someone special, someone worthy of family heirlooms and genuine affection. Brianna wanted to confess everything right there, to tell Eleanor the truth about the wrong floor and the desperate arrangement. But then Harrison's hand found hers under the table. His grip was warm, steady, reassuring. When she looked at him, his gray eyes held a message: stay strong. Play the part. Almost there. So Brianna smiled and nodded and told stories that were half true and half fiction. She talked about her love of books, real, and how Harrison swept her off her feet, fake. She described romantic dinners, never happened, and long conversations, completely fabricated. And with each lie the guilt grew heavier. The investors seemed satisfied. They discussed business terms with Harrison while Melissa and Tyler asked Brianna about wedding plans. She made up vague details about a spring ceremony, outdoor venue, intimate gathering. The lies flowed more easily now, which somehow made everything worse. Dinner concluded with dessert and coffee. As people began standing, saying their goodbyes, Eleanor pulled Brianna aside. Walk with me for a moment, she said, linking her arm through Brianna's. They stepped out onto the restaurant's terrace, which overlooked the city. The night air was cool, refreshing after the warmth of the dining room. Eleanor stood at the railing, looking out over the lights, and Brianna waited nervously for whatever was coming. "You're not what I expected," Eleanor finally said. Brianna's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "The woman I imagined Harrison would choose would be more like him. Calculating. Someone who saw marriage as a business opportunity." Eleanor turned to face her, and her eyes were knowing. "But you're different. You have warmth, genuine kindness. And when you look at my grandson, I see something in your eyes. Something real. Mrs. Blackwell. Call me Eleanor, dear. We're family now." She patted Brianna's hand. "I don't know what arrangement brought you into Harrison's life. I don't need to know. What I do know is that you're good for him. I've seen more life in his eyes tonight than I've seen in years. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, I approve. Wholeheartedly." Tears threatened again, but Brianna forced them back. "Thank you," she whispered, because she didn't know what else to say. "Take care of him, Brianna. Underneath all that ice, there's a good man. A lonely one. He just needs someone to remind him how to feel again." When they returned inside, Harrison was waiting. He looked between them with evident curiosity, but Eleanor just smiled and kissed his cheek. "She's perfect, darling. Don't mess this up." In the car on the way back, Harrison was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "What did my grandmother say to you?" "That I'm good for you." Brianna looked at the ring on her finger, watching how the city lights made it sparkle. "That you need someone to remind you how to feel." "My grandmother is a romantic," Harrison said dismissively. "Maybe that's not a bad thing." He looked at her, then really looked at her, and something passed between them. An understanding, maybe. Or a recognition that this fake arrangement had somehow become more complicated than either of them had planned. "The money will be in your account by morning," Harrison said, retreating behind his professional walls. "Plus extra for the clothes, your time, everything. The hospital confirmed your mother's bills are settled. You're free to go. Free to go. Back to her normal life. Back to job hunting in tiny apartments and the constant struggle to survive." This fairy tale was over. The clock had struck midnight. "What about Clarissa?" Brianna asked. "The real bride. I'll deal with that tomorrow. For tonight, you fulfilled your end of the agreement. Perfectly, I might add." The car pulled up to her apartment building. It looked even shabbier than usual after an evening in Harrison's world. The driver opened her door, and Harrison followed her out onto the sidewalk. "Thank you, Brianna," he said, and his voice was sincere. "You saved me tonight. Saved that deal. Saved my relationship with my grandmother. I won't forget it." He turned to leave, but Brianna found herself saying, "Harrison." He stopped, surprised she'd used his first name. "If you ever need anything, if things get complicated with Clarissa, you have my number." A small smile crossed his face, the first genuine one she'd seen. "Are you volunteering for another arrangement, Miss Mitchell?" "I'm offering help. As a friend. If you need it." The smile faded, replaced by something thoughtful. "Friends?" he repeated like the word was foreign. "I don't have many of those. Maybe you should start." He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. "Good night, Brianna." She watched his car drive away, taking with it the magic and the lies and the brief glimpse into a world she didn't belong to. Her hand went to the ring still on her finger. She'd forgotten to return it. Tomorrow she would. Tomorrow she'd mail it back to his office with a thank you note and try to return to normal life. But tonight, she stood on the sidewalk in a burgundy dress worth more than her rent, wearing a dead woman's ring, and wondered what it would be like if the fairy tale had been real. Brianna woke the next morning to 17 missed calls and a bank account that made her certain she was still dreaming. The number was real. The money was real. For the first time in 2 years, she wasn't drowning. She sat on her worn couch, staring at her phone screen, trying to process the transformation her life had undergone in less than 24 hours. Her mother was getting treatment. The bills were paid. She could breathe. But the relief was tempered by guilt. She'd lied to Harrison's grandmother, deceived kind people like Tyler and Melissa, participated in a fraud that felt more wrong with every passing hour. The money sat heavy in her account, tainted by the deception it had cost. Her phone rang. A known number. Brianna almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Miss Mitchell?" It was Margaret's crisp voice. "Mr. Blackwell needs to see you in his office immediately." Brianna's stomach dropped. "Is something wrong?" "He'll explain when you arrive. A car is waiting downstairs." The line went dead. Brianna looked down at herself, still wearing the clothes she'd slept in, her natural curls a mess around her face. She had approximately 10 minutes to make herself presentable before walking back into Harrison's world. The same black sedan waited at the curb. The same driver held the door. But this time, Brianna's anxiety was different. Last night had been play acting, but something about the way Margaret's voice had sounded made this feel serious. Harrison's office looked the same as yesterday, but he looked different. His suit was slightly rumpled, tie loosened, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. He was standing by the window again, but this time his posture was tense, shoulders rigid. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Brianna did. The click echoed in the quiet room. "Margaret said you needed to see me. Clarissa arrived last night." Harrison finally turned to face her. His gray eyes were stormy. "She met with her parents this morning. The Wu family is threatening to pull out of our business partnership unless I go through with the marriage immediately. But that's what you wanted, right? The arranged marriage?" "I thought it was." Harrison crossed to his desk, picked up a tablet and handed it to her. On the screen was a photo from last night's dinner. Harrison and Brianna at the table, his hand covering hers, both of them smiling. "Someone took this, posted it to social media. It's already been picked up by business news sites. Harrison Blackwell, notorious bachelor, finally settles down with mysterious beauty." Brianna scrolled through the article. Her face was everywhere, described as Harrison's fiancée, his great love, the woman who changed everything. "Oh no. Oh no" is right. Harrison sank into his chair, looking exhausted. "Clarissa's family saw the posts. They're furious. They're saying I've dishonored the arrangement, humiliated their daughter publicly. They want me to issue a statement denying you, confirming Clarissa as my actual fiancée, and apologize publicly." "Then do it," Brianna said, though the words hurt more than they should. "Tell them the truth. I was just filling in for one dinner. It was a misunderstanding. I tried that. They don't believe me." Harrison looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. "My grandmother called me at 6 this morning. She's ecstatic about you. She told the entire family. My father, my mother, everyone. They all think I've finally found real love. If I deny you now, my grandmother will be devastated." Brianna sat down slowly in one of the white chairs. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need you to continue the arrangement. Not for one night. For longer. Until I can figure out how to handle the Wu family without destroying my relationship with my grandmother or losing the business alliance." The room seemed to spin. "Continue pretending? For how long?" "Harrison, I can't just live a lie indefinitely." "Not indefinitely. Just a few weeks. Maybe a month." He stood and came around the desk. "I know I have no right to ask this. You fulfilled your end of the agreement. But I'm desperate, Brianna. The Wu family wants answers today. My grandmother is planning an engagement party for next weekend. Everything is spiraling out of control. A month of pretending to be your fiancé? You'd move into the penthouse. We'd maintain separate rooms, obviously. You'd come to family events, social functions. We'd keep up appearances until I can find a way to extract myself from the Wu arrangement without catastrophic consequences." Brianna thought about her tiny apartment, her job search that had yielded nothing, the weight of bills that had suddenly been lifted. She thought about Eleanor's warm eyes and Tyler's friendly smile. She thought about Harrison, standing in front of her looking more human and vulnerable than she'd ever imagined he could be. "What would you pay me?" The question felt mercenary, but Brianna had to be practical. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was business, as Harrison had reminded her multiple times. Harrison named a figure that made yesterday's payment look small. Plus living expenses, wardrobe, anything you need. And he hesitated. "I'll set up a fund for your mother. Ongoing treatment, the best doctors, private care if she needs it. Everything covered, for as long as she needs help." Brianna's eyes burned with tears. "That's too much." "It's what you're worth," Harrison said quietly. "You're saving me, Brianna. Again. This isn't charity. It's fair compensation for your time and the disruption to your life." She should say no. This was crazy, unsustainable, bound to end badly. But Brianna thought about her mother's face when she'd visited the hospital yesterday. The color returning to her cheeks. The hope in her eyes. The way she'd held Brianna's hand and whispered, "We're going to be okay now, aren't we?" 1 month, Brianna heard herself say. "But we need ground rules." Relief flooded Harrison's features. "Anything. First, no lying about the basics. I know we have to maintain the engagement fiction, but I won't pretend to be someone I'm not. Your family gets to know the real me." "Agreed." "Second, I want to keep looking for a real job. When this ends, I need something sustainable. I can help with that. I know people. No. Brianna cut him off. I need to do this myself. But I appreciate the offer. Harrison nodded, looking at her with what might have been respect. What else? Third, and this is important. When we end this, we do it carefully. Your grandmother doesn't get hurt. We break up mutually, amicably. No drama. Deal? Harrison extended his hand. When Brianna took it, his grip was warm and firm. Thank you, Brianna. You have no idea what this means. I think I'm starting to understand, she said. The next few hours were another whirlwind. Margaret coordinated Brianna's move from her apartment to Harrison's penthouse. Movers packed her few possessions, which looked pathetic compared to the luxury awaiting her. Harrison provided her with credit cards, keys, and a detailed schedule of upcoming events. The engagement party is Saturday, he explained as they rode the elevator to his penthouse. My grandmother is planning it. She'll want to be involved in every detail. Just smile and let her have creative control. Does she know this is all fake? Harrison was quiet. I don't know. She's perceptive. But she's also a romantic. I think she wants to believe it's real so badly that she's chosen to ignore any doubts. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Brianna stepped out and felt her breath catch. The space was enormous, all clean lines and modern design. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views that stretched to the horizon. Everything was pristine, expensive, and utterly impersonal. Your room is this way, Harrison said, leading her down a hallway. He opened a door to reveal a bedroom larger than her entire previous apartment. The walls were painted soft cream. A massive bed dominated the center, covered in white linens. A door led to a walk-in closet already filled with clothes. I had my stylist order some things in your size, Harrison explained. If anything doesn't fit or you need something else, just tell Margaret. Brianna walked to the window. Below, the city stretched out like a glittering toy. This was her home now. Temporarily. For business. Nothing real. Your room? She asked. On the other side of the penthouse. Harrison pointed down the hall. Complete privacy. We'll barely cross paths unless we have an event. So this was how it would be. Two strangers sharing a space, maintaining a careful distance, living a lie for the outside world while keeping truth between them. It felt lonely already. Harrison. Brianna turned to face him. Why did you really agree to the arranged marriage? The real reason, not the business explanation. He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then quietly, because my parents had an arranged marriage. They were happy in their way. Respectful. Compatible. I thought if I couldn't have love, at least I could have stability. And now? Now I don't know what I want. He looked at her and the walls were down again. You're confusing things, Brianna. Making me question choices I thought were logical. Maybe questions aren't always bad. Maybe. He moved toward the door. Get settled. We have dinner with my family tonight. Casual, just immediate family. Tyler is excited to get to know you better. After he left, Brianna sat on the edge of the impossibly soft bed and tried to process everything. She was living in a penthouse. Wearing designer clothes. Pretending to be engaged to a billionaire. Her mother was getting world-class treatment. Her bank account had more zeros than she'd ever imagined. And she felt more lost than ever. Her phone rang. Her mother. Baby girl. Her mother's voice was stronger than it had been in months. The doctors just told me about the new treatment plan. They said it's all covered. How did you manage this? Brianna closed her eyes. Another lie to add to the collection. I got a really good job, Mama. With excellent benefits. What kind of job? Personal assistant to a CEO. It's complicated. But it pays well and the health insurance is amazing. That's my smart girl. Her mother's pride came through the phone. I knew you'd figure something out. You always do. After they hung up, Brianna stared at her reflection in the window. The woman looking back was wearing expensive clothes and living in impossible luxury. But inside she was still the same person. Still scared. Still unsure. Still desperately hoping she hadn't made a terrible mistake. Dinner that night was at Tyler and Melissa's home, a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood. It was smaller than Harrison's penthouse but somehow felt more lived in, more like an actual home. Photos lined the walls. Comfortable furniture invited you to sit. Tyler greeted them at the door in jeans and a bright red sweater, looking nothing like the polished businessman from the restaurant. Come in, he said, hugging Brianna like they were old friends. Melissa's been cooking all day. Fair warning, she's a terrible cook but refuses to admit it. I heard that, Melissa called from the kitchen, laughing. The evening was surprisingly easy. Tyler asked Brianna about her life, her interests, her family. She answered honestly where she could, dancing around details that would reveal the truth. Melissa was warm and funny, telling stories about Tyler's various disasters that made Harrison smile. "Remember when you tried to bake Harrison a birthday cake when we were kids?" Tyler asked Melissa. "It caught on fire," she admitted. "I somehow set the oven to broil instead of bake." "The fire department was not amused," Tyler added. Harrison laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. For a moment, Brianna could see the boy he'd been before business and responsibility had hardened him. After dinner, Melissa pulled Brianna aside under the pretense of showing her the garden. They stood on the back deck, looking at flowers illuminated by soft lights. "Can I ask you something?" Melissa said gently. "And please be honest." Brianna's heart raced. "Of course. Are you in love with Harrison?" The question hung in the air between them. Brianna wanted to lie, to maintain the fiction, but something about Melissa's kind eyes made her want to tell the truth. "I don't know him well enough to love him," Brianna said carefully. "But I think I could. If given time." It wasn't exactly true, but it wasn't exactly false either. Melissa seemed satisfied. "Good. He needs someone real. Someone who sees him as Harrison, not as the Blackwell heir or the CEO or the cold businessman everyone thinks he is." Melissa squeezed her hand. "You're good for him. I can tell." On the drive home, Harrison was quiet. Brianna watched the city lights blur past, thinking about Melissa's words. "Your family is nice," she said finally. "They like you. Should I feel guilty about that?" Harrison glanced at her. "Do you?" "Every moment. Then we're even. I feel guilty for putting you in this position." They reached the penthouse, rode the elevator in silence. At Brianna's bedroom door, Harrison paused. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I'm glad it's you. Not Clarissa. Not anyone else. You." Before Brianna could respond, he was gone, disappearing into his wing of the penthouse. She stood alone in the hallway, her heart beating faster than it should, wondering what he'd meant by that. The sapphire ring on her finger caught the light, throwing blue shadows on the walls. A fake symbol of a fake engagement and a fake relationship that was starting to feel dangerously real. The days fell into a strange rhythm. Brianna woke early in the enormous penthouse, made coffee in the state-of-the-art kitchen, and usually found Harrison already dressed and working in his home office. They'd exchange quiet good mornings, careful to maintain the polite distance they'd established. Then Harrison would leave for his company headquarters, and Brianna would have the penthouse to herself. She spent her mornings job searching, though the task felt increasingly futile. Every position seemed small and insignificant compared to the life she was temporarily living. Her afternoons were consumed by wedding planning sessions with Eleanor, who had thrown herself into engagement party preparations with infectious enthusiasm. "I'm thinking soft peach and cream for the color scheme," Eleanor said one afternoon, showing Brianna fabric swatches in her elegant sitting room. Eleanor's home was grand but warm, filled with family photos and comfortable furniture. Nothing too formal. "I want it to feel intimate." Brianna touched the soft fabric, guilt twisting in her stomach. "That sounds beautiful. You seem troubled, dear." Eleanor set the swatches aside, focusing her perceptive gray eyes on Brianna. "Is everything all right with you and Harrison?" "Everything's fine," Brianna lied smoothly, the words coming easier now after days of practice. "I'm just not used to all this attention. The planning, the public interest. It's overwhelming." "Harrison's world can be intimidating," Eleanor agreed. "But you're handling it beautifully. I've watched you at events, how naturally you interact with people, how genuine you are. My grandson is lucky to have found you." Each compliment was a small knife in Brianna's chest. She wanted to scream the truth, confess everything, stop this runaway train before it derailed completely. But then she thought about her mother, thriving on new treatments. Thought about Harrison's desperate gratitude. Thought about how much worse the fallout would be if she confessed now versus handling it carefully later. "I'm the lucky one," Brianna said, and wondered if that was another lie or a truth she wasn't ready to acknowledge. The evenings were different. Harrison usually returned home around 8, and they'd share dinner together. It started as obligation, maintaining appearances even when no one was watching. But gradually, it became something else. "Tell me something real about you," Harrison said one evening over takeout Chinese food. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves, looking more relaxed than Brianna had ever seen him. They sat on the floor by the coffee table, boxes of food spread between them. "Something I don't know." I wanted to be a teacher, Brianna admitted. Elementary school. I was 2 years into my degree when my mother got sick. Had to drop out to work, pay bills. Never went back. Harrison was quiet, processing this. Do you regret it? Sometimes. But I'd make the same choice again. She's my mother. She needed me. That's love, Harrison said softly. Sacrificing what you want for someone else's well-being. What about you? Brianna asked. What did you want to be before business consumed your life? An architect. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as her. I used to draw building designs constantly. Dreamed of creating spaces that made people feel something. Safe, inspired, whatever. But the company needed me. Family legacy, responsibility, all that. Do you regret it? I don't let myself think about it. Harrison picked at his food. Regret is unproductive. Maybe. Or maybe it's human. Their conversations grew deeper with each passing day. They talked about books, sharing recommendations. Argued good-naturedly about movies. Discovered a shared love of old jazz music. The walls Harrison had built so carefully began developing cracks. And through them, Brianna caught glimpses of the person he might have been if life hadn't made him so guarded. But it wasn't all easy. They attended event after event, always playing their roles perfectly. Business dinners where Brianna smiled and nodded while investors assessed her. Charity galas where photographers captured their carefully choreographed affection. Family gatherings where the lie grew more elaborate and more painful. Tyler pulled Harrison aside one evening after a family dinner. Brianna watched from across the room as the brothers talked in low, intense voices. Tyler looked concerned, gesturing emphatically. Harrison's face remained carefully neutral, but his shoulders were tense. When they left, Harrison was quiet in the car. Brianna waited, knowing better than to push. Finally he said, Tyler knows. Brianna's blood turned cold. What? Not everything. But he suspects this isn't real. He asked me point blank if I was actually in love with you. Harrison stared out the window. I told him yes. Did he believe you? I don't know. Harrison's voice was strained. He said I looked at you the way our parents used to look at each other. Before they died. He said whatever this started as, it's becoming something else. Is it? The question escaped before Brianna could stop it. Harrison turned to look at her, and the intensity in his gray eyes made her breath catch. I don't know. I don't trust myself to know the difference between real and performance anymore. Neither did Brianna. The lines had blurred so much she couldn't find them anymore. When Harrison took her hand at events, was it for show or something more? When he laughed at her jokes, when he asked about her day, when he looked at her like she mattered beyond the arrangement, was any of it real? The engagement party loomed closer. Eleanor had rented an entire hotel ballroom. 200 guests were invited. The social media buzz was overwhelming. Brianna found herself featured in society columns, fashion blogs, business news. Harrison Blackwell's mystery woman, they called her. The fiancée who captured the uncapturable. One morning, Brianna woke to find Harrison in the kitchen, staring at his laptop with a grim expression. What's wrong? She asked, pouring coffee. The Wu family issued a statement. He turned the screen toward her. The article headline read, Wu Enterprises ends partnership with Blackwell Corporation over broken engagement contract. Brianna read quickly. Clarissa's family was claiming Harrison had breached their agreement. They were pulling investment, ending business relationships, threatening legal action. The article included a photo of Clarissa looking devastated, claiming Harrison had humiliated her family. This is bad, Brianna whispered. It's worse than bad. We're losing contracts. Investors are nervous. The board is calling emergency meetings. Harrison closed the laptop. My father called me this morning. He wants to meet you. Your father? Richard Blackwell. CEO of Blackwell Corporation before me. Now chairman of the board. He's flying in from London specifically to assess whether you're worth the business fallout you've caused. The weight of that statement settled over Brianna like a heavy blanket. She'd cost Harrison money, reputation, business relationships. All because of a lie they'd constructed together. Maybe we should end this now, she said quietly. Before it gets worse. No. Harrison stood, crossing to stand in front of her. We're not ending anything. My father doesn't get to dictate my personal life. Neither does the Wu family or anyone else. We finish what we started. But Harrison. I'm not ending this because it's convenient for business. His voice was firm, final. Whatever this is between us, real or fake or something in between, it's ours. No one else gets a say. Brianna looked up at him, seeing determination in his eyes. And something else. Something that made her heart race and her carefully constructed walls tremble. Okay, she whispered. We keep going. Harrison's father arrived 2 days later. Richard Blackwell was an older, harder version of Harrison. Same gray eyes, same sharp features, but without any of the softness Brianna had begun to see in his son. He assessed her with cold calculation over lunch at an exclusive restaurant. So you're the woman who's costing my company millions, Richard said, cutting into his steak with precise movements. Father, Harrison warned. It's a legitimate question. Richard turned his attention back to Brianna. The Wu family was a strategic alliance decades in the making. Their investment supported 3 major expansions. And you've destroyed that relationship in a matter of weeks. I didn't mean to, Brianna said, finding her voice. I never intended to cause problems. Intentions don't matter in business. Results do. Richard took a sip of wine. Harrison tells me you're the great love of his life. That you're worth any cost. I'm here to determine if that's true. The rest of lunch was an interrogation disguised as conversation. Richard asked about Brianna's background, education, family. He questioned her knowledge of business, her understanding of the Blackwell Company, her plans for the future. Every answer was weighed and measured. She doesn't need your approval, Harrison said finally, his patience clearly exhausted. I'm marrying her regardless of what you think. No, you're not. Richard set down his fork. You're not marrying anyone. Because I've done some research and Miss Mitchell here applied for a job at our company 2 weeks ago. A personal assistant position. Entry level. She never had an interview scheduled. Which means she walked into your office by accident. The blood drained from Brianna's face. Harrison's expression didn't change, but his hand found hers under the table, gripping tight. I figured out your little arrangement, Richard continued. I don't know the exact details, but I can guess. She needed money. You needed a convenient excuse to avoid Clarissa. You struck a deal. Very practical, actually. I'd be impressed if it wasn't causing such catastrophic business problems. You don't know what you're talking about, Harrison said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't I? Richard leaned back in his chair. Here's what's going to happen. Miss Mitchell is going to disappear quietly. You'll issue a statement saying the relationship was a mistake, a brief infatuation that didn't work out. We'll negotiate with the Wu family, offer appropriate compensation, rebuild the bridge you burned. And life will return to normal. No, Harrison said flatly. Excuse me? I said no. Brianna isn't going anywhere. The engagement stands. Whatever started this relationship, it's become something real. Something that matters more than business deals or family alliances. Richard studied his son for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't entirely cold either. You really believe that? I do. And you, Miss Mitchell? What do you believe? Brianna looked at Harrison, seeing the determination in his eyes, the vulnerability he was trying to hide. She thought about their late-night conversations, the way he laughed at her jokes, how he'd paid her mother's medical bills without hesitation. She thought about the loneliness she'd seen in him, the cracks in his armor, the possibility that this fake arrangement had become something neither of them had planned. I believe, Brianna said carefully, that Harrison is worth fighting for. That whatever complications this has caused, we'll figure them out together. And that some things matter more than business. Richard studied them both, his expression unreadable. Finally he nodded. All right then. Keep your arrangement, your fake engagement, whatever this is. But understand the cost. The Wu family will continue their retaliation. We'll lose contracts. Stock prices will fluctuate. The board will be hostile. And if this relationship falls apart publicly, the damage will be catastrophic. We understand, Harrison said. Do you? Richard stood, preparing to leave. Because from where I'm sitting, you're risking everything your family built for a woman you met by accident. That's either love or stupidity. I hope for both your sakes it's the former. After he left, Brianna and Harrison sat in silence. The weight of Richard's words pressed down on them. I'm sorry, Brianna finally said. Your father is right. I'm costing you everything. You're giving me something I haven't had in years, Harrison countered. Something that feels real. That matters beyond spreadsheets and stock prices. What if it falls apart? What if we can't maintain this? Harrison reached across the table, taking both her hands in his. Then we deal with it when it happens. Together. But I'm not letting you go because my father thinks it's bad business. I'm not letting you go at all. The words hung between them, heavy with implications neither was quite ready to address. Brianna squeezed his hands, feeling the solid warmth of him, and wondered when pretending had stopped feeling like pretending. That night, unable to sleep, Brianna found Harrison on the penthouse balcony. He stood at the railing looking out over the city, his dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He looked tired, troubled, more human than she'd ever seen him. "Can't sleep either?" she asked, joining him at the railing. "Too much on my mind." He glanced at her, then did a double take. She was wearing a bright blue silk robe she'd found in the closet, her natural curls loose around her shoulders. "You look different. Without all the styling and makeup. Different good or different bad?" "Different real." He turned to face her fully. "I prefer it." They stood in comfortable silence, the city lights twinkling below them. Finally Harrison said, "My mother died when I was 14. Car accident. My father buried himself in work and I learned to do the same. I told myself emotions were complications, that feeling things made you weak. I built walls so high I forgot what it was like to let anyone in." Brianna didn't interrupt, sensing he needed to say this. "But you?" Harrison shook his head, a small smile playing at his lips. "You walked into my office by accident and somehow managed to knock down every wall I'd spent years building. I don't know if what I feel is real or just gratitude or desperation or some combination of everything. But I know I don't want it to end." "Harrison," Brianna whispered, her heart pounding. "I'm not asking you to love me," he continued quickly. "I know this started as business. I know the circumstances are complicated. But I'm asking if you'd consider giving this a real chance. After the engagement party, after we've dealt with the Wu family fallout, after everything settles. Would you consider being with me for real?" Brianna looked at him, this complicated man who'd stumbled into her life as randomly as she'd stumbled into his. She thought about how wrong this all was, how it had started with lies and desperation. But she also thought about late-night conversations and shared laughter and the way her heart raced when he smiled. "I'd consider it," she said softly. "After everything settles. After we can be sure what we're feeling is real and not just the result of this strange situation we're in. That's all I'm asking." He leaned down and for a moment Brianna thought he might kiss her. Instead, he pressed his forehead to hers, a gesture somehow more intimate than any kiss could have been. "We're going to be okay," he whispered. "Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." Standing on that balcony, surrounded by city lights and infinite possibilities, Brianna let herself believe him. The week before the engagement party passed in a blur of preparations and appearances. Harrison took Brianna to 3 charity events, 2 business dinners and 1 black tie gala at a museum. At each event, their performance grew more natural, the touches less calculated, the smiles more genuine. "You're a natural at this," Harrison said at the museum gala, guiding her through rooms filled with impressionist paintings. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him perfectly, and Brianna wore an emerald green dress that made her feel like a different person entirely. "At pretending to be in love with you? At being yourself in situations that would terrify most people." He stopped in front of a Monet, the water lilies blurred and dreamlike. "You talked to the mayor's wife about education reform for 20 minutes. You had the entire board of directors laughing at your story about trying to bake a cake for your mother. You're not pretending. You're just being Brianna." She looked at the painting thinking about his words. Maybe he was right. Maybe she'd stopped pretending somewhere along the way and had simply started living in this strange new reality. "Harrison Blackwell," a sharp voice cut through their moment. They turned to find a stunning Asian woman in a white designer gown approaching. Her expression was cold, calculating. "I thought that was you." "Clarissa," Harrison said, his voice careful. "I didn't know you'd be here." So this was Clarissa Wu, the actual arranged bride. The woman Harrison was supposed to marry. Brianna felt herself being assessed with icy precision. "And this must be the replacement," Clarissa said, looking Brianna up and down. "The woman who cost me a perfectly good marriage arrangement." "This is Brianna Mitchell," Harrison said firmly. "My fiancée." "How romantic." Clarissa's smile didn't reach her eyes. "A real love match. How did you meet again? At a charity event? Or was it through mutual friends? I forget the story that's been circulating." Brianna felt her face flush. Clarissa knew. Or at least suspected. The way she said love match dripped with sarcasm. "We met unexpectedly," Brianna said, finding her voice. "And fell in love. I'm sorry if that caused problems for you." "Problems?" Clarissa laughed. "You destroyed a 20-year agreement between our families. My father had to restructure his entire business plan. We lost face in the business community. But please don't let my ruined life concern you. Clarissa, Harrison stepped between them. If you came here to cause a scene. I came here for the art, Clarissa interrupted. The scene is just a bonus. Enjoy your fake engagement, Harrison. I give it 3 months before the cracks start showing. People like you don't know how to maintain real relationships. That's why arrangements work so much better. She walked away, her white gown flowing behind her like ice. Brianna felt shaken, the guilt she'd been suppressing rushing back with force. Don't listen to her, Harrison said quietly. She's right though. We did ruin her life. She didn't want me any more than I wanted her. This was always about business for both our families. Harrison took Brianna's hand. But I am sorry you had to deal with that. She had no right to speak to you that way. The rest of the evening felt tainted. Brianna went through the motions, smiled at the right people, said the right things. But Clarissa's words echoed in her head. Fake engagement. 3 months before the cracks show. People like you don't know how to maintain real relationships. That night, Brianna couldn't sleep. She wandered the penthouse in the dark, ending up in Harrison's home office. The door was ajar, light spilling into the hallway. Inside, Harrison sat at his desk, surrounded by papers, his laptop screen glowing. It's 2 a.m, Brianna said from the doorway. He looked up, clearly exhausted. Can't turn my brain off. The Wu family filed another lawsuit today. Breach of contract, defamation, seeking $50 million in damages. Brianna stepped into the office, closing the door behind her. This is all my fault. It's not. Harrison, if I hadn't walked into your office that day. If you hadn't walked into my office that day, I'd be married to Clarissa right now. Miserable. Living a lie for the rest of my life. He stood, coming around the desk. You gave me an out. A chance to choose something real instead of settling for what was expected. But at what cost? Your business relationships, your family's legacy. Were never mine to begin with, Harrison interrupted. I was always just a placeholder. The responsible son who did what was expected. I never chose any of this. What do you want? Brianna asked. If you could have anything, forget business and family expectations and all of it. What would make you happy? Harrison looked at her for a long moment. Then quietly, whatever we're building here, messy and complicated as it is, that makes me happy. The words hung in the air between them. Brianna's heart raced. She knew she should step back, maintain distance, remember that this was still technically a business arrangement. But standing in his office at 2 a.m, with honest vulnerability written across his face, all her careful walls crumbled. Harrison, she whispered. He crossed the space between them in 3 steps, his hands coming up to cup her face. Tell me to stop. She didn't. She couldn't. Instead, she rose on her toes and closed the distance between them. The kiss was tentative at first, both of them testing this new territory. Then Harrison pulled her closer and Brianna melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt. The kiss deepened, became something urgent and real and nothing like the careful performances they'd maintained in public. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Harrison rested his forehead against hers. That was real, Brianna finished. That was real. Yeah. He smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that transformed his whole face. Very real. They stood there for a moment, holding each other, letting the magnitude of what had just happened settle over them. The arrangement had officially become something else. Something neither of them had planned but both of them wanted. We should probably talk about this, Harrison said eventually. Probably. Brianna stepped back slightly, though she couldn't quite bring herself to let go of him completely. This complicates things. Everything was already complicated. More complicated than. Harrison laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Fair point. So what do we do? I don't know. Brianna bit her lip. The engagement party is in 2 days. Your entire family will be there. Business associates, friends. Everyone expecting us to be madly in love. And now we actually might be, Harrison finished. Is that such a bad thing? It's terrifying, Brianna admitted. What if this doesn't work? What if we're just caught up in the moment, in the drama of everything? What if Clarissa is right and we can't maintain something real? Then we fail, Harrison said simply. And we deal with it. But at least we'll have tried something genuine instead of living our entire lives playing it safe. He made it sound so simple. So possible. Brianna wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this could work. But doubt lingered, whispering warnings in the back of her mind. Can we just take this slow? She asked. Keep it between us for now. Figure out what this is before we change the narrative for everyone else. We can do that. Harrison pulled her close again, and Brianna rested her head against his chest, hearing the steady beat of his heart. Whatever pace you need, Brianna. I'm not going anywhere. They stood there in his office, holding each other in the quiet darkness, and let themselves hope. The next 2 days were a strange dance of public performance and private reality. At Eleanor's house, working on final party preparations, they maintained their careful distance. But alone in the penthouse, they let themselves explore this new dimension of their relationship. Harrison cooked dinner, badly making Brianna laugh, and they ate on the balcony talking for hours. They watched old movies curled up on the couch, Harrison's arm around Brianna's shoulders. They shared stolen kisses in hallways and quiet moments, each one feeling like a small rebellion against the lies they'd built. I visited your mother today, Harrison admitted one evening. Brianna looked up from her book. You what? I stopped by the hospital. Wanted to meet her properly, not just as some distant force paying bills. He seemed nervous, which was endearing. I hope that's okay. What did you talk about? You mostly. She told me about your childhood, how you've always taken care of everyone around you, how proud she is of the woman you've become. Harrison took Brianna's hand. She also warned me that if I hurt you, she has friends in places I don't want to know about. Brianna laughed despite herself. That sounds like Mama. She approved of me, I think. Said I had kind eyes even if I tried to hide it. Harrison's expression softened. She loves you so much, Brianna. Wants you to be happy more than anything. I know. Are you? Happy, I mean. Brianna thought about the question. 2 weeks ago she'd been desperate, broke, watching her mother suffer while feeling powerless to help. Now she was living in luxury, financially secure, her mother getting the best treatment available. But more than that, she'd found something unexpected. Someone who saw her, really saw her, and valued what he found. Yeah, she said softly. I think I am. The morning of the engagement party, Brianna woke to find Harrison already gone. A note on the kitchen counter explained he'd gone to handle some last-minute business issues. Eleanor and her styling team were arriving at 10 to help Brianna prepare. The transformation took hours. Her hair was styled in elegant waves. Her makeup was professionally done, subtle but flawless. The dress Eleanor had chosen was a deep burgundy that complemented Brianna's skin tone perfectly. When she finally looked in the mirror, the woman staring back was sophisticated, confident, beautiful. You look like a princess, Eleanor said, her eyes misty. Harrison won't be able to take his eyes off you. Guilt twisted in Brianna's chest. Eleanor had put so much love and effort into this party. She believed this engagement was real, believed that her grandson had finally found happiness. When the truth eventually came out, it would break her heart. Eleanor, Brianna said impulsively. Can I ask you something? Of course, dear. What if this isn't what you think it is? What if Harrison and I, what if we're not the perfect love story everyone wants us to be? Eleanor looked at her for a long moment, her gray eyes knowing. Brianna, I've lived 78 years. I've seen real love and fake smiles and everything in between. Whatever brought you and Harrison together, what matters is what you're building now. Love doesn't always start perfectly. Sometimes it grows from unexpected places. Even if those places involve lies? Especially then. Eleanor took Brianna's hand. I know more than you think, child. I know this didn't start the way everyone believes. But I've watched you with Harrison these past weeks. I've seen how he looks at you, how you look at him. Whatever this began as, it's becoming something real. And that's worth celebrating. Tears threatened Brianna's carefully applied makeup. You knew. I suspected. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that you make each other better. You make Harrison remember how to be human instead of just a businessman. He makes you believe you deserve good things. That's love, Brianna. Messy, complicated, imperfect love. The party was being held at the Blackwell estate, a sprawling property outside the city. As their car pulled up the long driveway, Brianna's breath caught. The house was lit up like a fairy tale, all elegant columns and glowing windows. The gardens were strung with thousands of tiny lights. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's home, Harrison said beside her. He looked impossibly handsome in his navy blue suit, his hand warm as it found hers. Ready? Terrified. Good. Me too. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. But we're in this together. Whatever happens tonight, we face it together. The ballroom was filled with people. Brianna recognized several faces from previous events. Tyler and Melissa waved from across the room. Richard Blackwell stood near the bar, watching them with his calculating gaze. And everywhere, people were staring, assessing, judging the woman who'd captured Harrison Blackwell's heart. Eleanor made a speech, welcoming everyone and talking about love and family and new beginnings. Harrison's father gave a toast that was more business-focused but ultimately supportive. Then it was Harrison and Brianna's turn. They stood at the center of the ballroom, all eyes on them. Harrison took the microphone, his hand never leaving Brianna's. "I'm not good at this," he admitted, and gentle laughter rippled through the crowd. "Public displays of emotion aren't my strength. But Brianna has taught me that some things are worth being vulnerable for. Worth taking risks for. Worth fighting for even when the entire business world thinks you're making a mistake." He turned to look at Brianna, and the emotion in his eyes was so raw, so real, that she forgot they had an audience. "You walked into my life by accident," Harrison continued, "and you've changed everything. You've made me question every wall I built, every rule I followed, every decision I thought was logical. You've shown me that life is more than spreadsheets and strategic partnerships. That connection, real human connection, is worth more than any business deal." He got down on one knee even though they were already engaged, already wearing rings. The crowd gasped. Brianna's heart stopped. "Brianna Mitchell," Harrison said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. "Will you take a chance on me? Not the version of me everyone expects, but the real me. The one who's messy and uncertain and terrified of failing at this. Will you let me prove that love can grow from the most unexpected beginnings?" This wasn't about the arrangement anymore. This wasn't business or convenience or desperation. This was real. He was asking for real. Brianna looked at him, this complicated man who'd stumbled into her life and somehow become essential. She thought about Clarissa's bitter words, about the risks and the complications and all the logical reasons to say no. But she also thought about late-night conversations and stolen kisses and the way he made her believe in possibilities she'd stopped dreaming about. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "yes." The ballroom erupted in applause. Harrison stood, pulling her into his arms, kissing her like they were the only two people in the world. And for that moment they were. Everything else fell away until there was just them, just this fragile, beautiful thing they were building together. When they finally broke apart, Brianna saw Eleanor beaming through happy tears. Saw Tyler giving them a thumbs up. Saw even Richard Blackwell nodding with something that might have been approval. The rest of the evening passed in a celebratory blur. Brianna danced with Harrison, with Tyler, with guests whose names she'd forget by morning. She laughed and smiled and let herself believe just for tonight that fairy tales could be real. Late in the evening, when most guests had filtered home, Brianna found herself alone on the estate's terrace. The garden stretched out below, peaceful and beautiful. She heard footsteps behind her. "There you are," Harrison said, joining her at the railing. "Tyler was looking for you. He wants to give an impromptu toast with just family." "Harrison, what you said in there? I meant every word." He turned her to face him. "I know this started as an arrangement. I know we have complications to work through. But what I feel for you, Brianna, that's as real as it gets." "I'm falling for you," Brianna admitted, the words terrifying and liberating at once. "I didn't mean to, I tried not to, but I am." "Good." Harrison smiled, that genuine smile that made her heart race. "Because I'm already gone. Completely, absolutely in love with you. Have been for weeks probably. I just didn't want to admit it." He kissed her again, tender and sweet and full of promise. And standing there in the garden lights, surrounded by the remnants of their elaborate performance, they let themselves believe that sometimes the best love stories start with the messiest beginnings. Are you Team Harrison and Brianna? Has a business arrangement ever turned into real love in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Will their love survive the challenges ahead? The morning after the engagement party, Brianna woke with a smile on her face. Sunlight streamed through the penthouse windows, warming the white sheets. For the first time in weeks, she felt genuinely peaceful. The party had been beautiful. Harrison's declaration had been real. They had a chance at something genuine. She found Harrison in the kitchen attempting to make pancakes. The results were questionable, but his effort made her laugh. "I'm starting to think cooking isn't your strength," she teased, sliding onto a bar stool. "I have other talents." He grinned at her, that boyish expression that made him look years younger. Business strategy, hostile takeovers, winning over stubborn women who walked into the wrong office. Very smooth. She accepted a plate of slightly burnt pancakes and doused them in syrup. "What's on the schedule today?" "Absolutely nothing." Harrison came around the counter, wrapping his arms around her waist. I cleared my entire calendar. Thought we could spend the day together. No events, no performances, just us. It sounded perfect. They spent the morning exploring the penthouse, discovering rooms Brianna hadn't even known existed. A library filled with first editions. A screening room with plush recliners. A rooftop garden Harrison admitted he'd forgotten about. I never use most of this space, he said as they walked through the garden, surrounded by plants that had somehow thrived despite neglect. It's too big for one person. Too empty. Not empty anymore, Brianna pointed out, squeezing his hand. They were planning lunch when Harrison's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's my assistant. I should take this. While Harrison talked in low, tense tones, Brianna explored the garden further. She was examining a blooming rose bush when she heard Harrison's sharp intake of breath. What do you mean she's here? Harrison demanded. How did she get past security? Pause. No, don't let her up. I'll come down. He hung up, his expression grim. Clarissa is in the lobby. She's demanding to see me. Brianna's peaceful morning evaporated. What does she want? I don't know, but I have a feeling it's not good. Harrison ran a hand through his hair. You should probably stay here. Absolutely not. Brianna straightened her shoulders. We're in this together, remember? Whatever she has to say, we face it together. Harrison looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Brianna's expression stopped him. All right. But if things get ugly, let me handle it. They rode the elevator down in tense silence. When the doors opened to the lobby, Brianna saw Clarissa immediately. She wore a red power suit, her dark hair pulled back severely. She looked like she'd come for war. Harrison, Clarissa said, her voice cold. And the replacement? How convenient. Clarissa, I don't know what you want, but I want what I'm owed. Clarissa pulled out a folder, slapping it against Harrison's chest. My lawyers have been very busy. That's a breach of contract lawsuit for $200 million. Plus defamation charges for the way you and your family have portrayed me in the media. Harrison flipped through the papers, his jaw tightening. This is excessive even for you. Excessive? You humiliated my family. You broke a contract that was legally binding. You cost us business relationships worth billions. And you did it all for her. Clarissa's gaze raked over Brianna with contempt. Ain't nobody from nowhere who happened to get lost on the wrong floor. Watch it, Harrison warned, his voice dangerous. Or what? You'll sue me too? Clarissa laughed bitterly. I'm not scared of you anymore, Harrison. Your father already tried to intimidate me. Offered me money to go away quietly. But I'm done being the convenient option everyone pushes aside. Brianna saw something beneath Clarissa's anger. Real genuine hurt. Despite everything, she felt sympathy stir. Clarissa, Brianna said gently. I'm sorry. Truly. I know our situation has caused you pain. Don't. Clarissa held up a hand. Don't you dare try to apologize like we're friends. You took something from me. Maybe I didn't want Harrison romantically, but that arrangement meant security. It meant my family's approval. It meant something. Then let's fix it, Harrison said. Tell me what you actually want, Clarissa. Not the lawsuit, not the revenge. What do you really need? Clarissa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, more vulnerable. I want to stop being a pawn in my family's business deals. I want to make my own choices. I want what you have, Harrison. The courage to choose someone for real instead of settling for what's expected. The admission hung in the air between them. Brianna saw Clarissa clearly for the first time. Not as a villain or an obstacle, but as someone trapped in the same system that had nearly destroyed Harrison. Is there someone? Brianna asked gently. Someone you actually care about? Clarissa's mask cracked slightly. There was. My father forbade it. Wrong social class, no business connections. I was supposed to marry Harrison and forget about real feelings. What's his name? Harrison asked. Daniel Park. He's a professor at Columbia. Literature department. Nothing impressive by my family's standards. Clarissa's expression softened talking about him. But he makes me laugh. He challenges me. He sees me as more than a business asset. Then choose him, Harrison said simply. Break free the way I did. I can't. My family will disown me. Cut me off completely. I don't have your resources, Harrison. I can't just walk away. An idea formed in Brianna's mind. A way to fix some of the damage they'd caused. What if you didn't have to choose? What if there was a way to satisfy your family and be with Daniel? Both Harrison and Clarissa looked at her. Your family wants business connections, right? Brianna continued. What if we help Daniel's career? Harrison, your company funds academic programs. You could endow a chair at Columbia with Daniel as the inaugural professor. Suddenly he has prestige, visibility, connections. He becomes someone your family can accept. Clarissa stared at her. That's actually brilliant. And in exchange, Harrison added, catching on, you drop the lawsuit. We issue a joint statement saying the arranged marriage was mutually dissolved, that both parties found real love elsewhere. Everyone saves face. My family will still be angry, Clarissa said slowly. But if Daniel has that kind of position, that kind of recognition, they might accept it. Eventually. It's a start, Brianna said. Better than lawsuits and revenge and everyone staying miserable. Clarissa looked between them, something like respect entering her eyes. I underestimated you. Both of you. I thought you were just caught up in some dramatic affair. But you actually care about fixing things. We care about people not getting hurt, Harrison corrected. Including you. Over the next hour they worked out the details. Harrison made calls to Columbia's administration, to his company's charitable foundation, to lawyers who could draft the necessary agreements. Clarissa called Daniel, her entire demeanor transforming as she spoke to him. The coldness melted away, replaced by genuine warmth and affection. He said yes, Clarissa announced after hanging up. He can't believe it, but he said yes. Then we have a deal? Harrison extended his hand. Clarissa shook it firmly. We have a deal. I'll instruct my lawyers to withdraw the lawsuit. And Harrison, thank you for giving me the courage to stop settling. After Clarissa left, looking lighter than when she'd arrived, Brianna collapsed on the lobby couch. That was intense. That was you being amazing. Harrison sat beside her, pulling her close. How did you think of that solution? Because I know what it's like to feel trapped. To think you have no options. Brianna rested her head on his shoulder. And because I wanted her to have what we're finding. A real chance at happiness. I love you, Harrison said suddenly. I know I said it last night, but I need you to know I mean it. Completely. You make me want to be better, do better, see the world with more compassion. I love you too, Brianna whispered, the words still feeling new and fragile. Even though this whole situation is completely insane. Especially because it's insane. Harrison kissed the top of her head. Want to get out of here? Go somewhere normal people go? Like where? I don't know. A park? A coffee shop? Somewhere I can just be Harrison and you can just be Brianna and we can pretend we're a normal couple for a while? They ended up at a small park several blocks away, sitting on a bench and eating ice cream like teenagers. People walked past without recognizing them. Children played on the swings. The sun was warm and perfect. This is nice, Brianna said, licking her strawberry cone. Being normal. Define normal, Harrison teased. Is any part of our relationship normal? Fair point. She laughed. But you know what I mean. No cameras, no performances, no business associates judging every word. Just us. Just us. They spent the afternoon exploring the neighborhood, discovering small shops and cafes. Harrison bought Brianna a book from an independent bookstore. She bought him a ridiculous tie covered in cartoon cats that he promised to wear to his next board meeting. As evening approached, they ended up back at the penthouse, exhausted but happy. They ordered takeout and ate on the balcony watching the city lights come alive. Can I ask you something? Brianna said, setting down her half-eaten Chinese food. Always. What happens now? We've solved the Clarissa problem. The engagement party is over. Your family believes we're in love. When does this arrangement officially end? Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Does it have to end? What do you mean? I mean, we started this as an arrangement, but it's become something real. So why end it at all? He took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Stay with me. Not because of a contract or money or obligation. Stay because you want to. Because this thing between us is worth exploring. And if it doesn't work out, then at least we tried. But Brianna, I really think it will work out. I think we could be great together. Brianna looked out over the city, thinking about everything that had brought them to this moment. The wrong office, the desperate arrangement, the lies that had somehow transformed into truth. It was messy and complicated and completely unconventional. It was also real. Okay, she said. Let's try. For real this time. Harrison's smile was brighter than the city lights. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that made her believe in impossible things. They were settling into comfortable silence when Harrison's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. It's Tyler. He wants to meet tomorrow. Says it's urgent. What do you think it's about? I don't know. But knowing my brother, it's either very good news or very bad news. He doesn't do urgent for anything in between. That night, lying in bed, Brianna couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Things had been going too well. Clarissa had been surprisingly reasonable. Harrison's family had accepted her. Her mother was thriving. It felt like the calm before a storm. She tried to push the feeling aside, focusing instead on the warmth of Harrison's arm around her, the steady rhythm of his breathing. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. That had to be enough. Tyler's apartment was in chaos when they arrived the next morning. Boxes were stacked everywhere, furniture covered in sheets. Melissa was directing movers with military precision, wearing a bright yellow t-shirt and jeans. Sorry about the mess, Tyler said, letting them in. He wore a green polo that matched his excited energy. We're renovating. But I couldn't wait to tell you guys the news. What news? Harrison asked warily. Tyler pulled Melissa over, both of them grinning like children on Christmas morning. We're pregnant. The announcement was met with a beat of stunned silence. Then Brianna squealed and pulled Melissa into a hug. That's amazing. Congratulations. Harrison hugged his brother, genuine warmth in his expression. I'm going to be an uncle. When did you find out? 2 days ago, Melissa said, practically glowing. We wanted to tell you at the engagement party, but it seemed like your night. We didn't want to steal your thunder. You should have said something, Brianna insisted. This is huge. They spent the next hour celebrating, Melissa showing them ultrasound photos, Tyler talking excitedly about nursery plans. It was joyful and normal and exactly what Brianna needed after weeks of drama. There's something else, Tyler said when they were having coffee. His tone shifted, becoming more serious. Dad called me this morning. He wants to have a family meeting. All of us, including you, Brianna. Harrison tensed. About what? He wouldn't say. Just that it's important and it can't wait. Tyler looked between them. Harrison, is everything okay? With the company, I mean. As far as I know. We resolved the Wu situation. Clarissa dropped the lawsuit. Stock prices are stabilizing. Harrison frowned. Unless Dad knows something I don't. When is this meeting? Brianna asked. Tonight. 6 o'clock. At the estate. Tyler hesitated. He specifically said to bring you, Brianna. Said this concerns the whole family. After they left Tyler's apartment, Harrison was uncharacteristically quiet in the car. Brianna watched him, seeing the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw was set. Talk to me, she said gently. My father doesn't call family meetings for good news. And he definitely doesn't include future family members unless he's planning something. Harrison stared out the window. I have a bad feeling about this. Whatever it is, we'll handle it. Will we? Harrison looked at her, vulnerability showing through his usual confidence. Brianna, I don't know what he's planning. But if he tries to manipulate you, tries to use your background or your mother's situation against us, I won't stand for it. Harrison, I can handle your father. I know you can. That's not what worries me. He took her hand. I'm worried he'll say things that make you doubt us. Make you think this was all a mistake. That won't happen, Brianna said firmly. I know what we have. Your father can't take that away with words. But as the day progressed, her confidence wavered. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to shift. She tried calling her mother for reassurance, but the hospital said she was sleeping. Eleanor called to chat about potential wedding venues, which only made Brianna feel more guilty. By the time they arrived at the Blackwell estate that evening, Brianna's nerves were stretched thin. The house looked different in daylight, less magical and more imposing. A butler let them in, directing them to Richard's study. The room was all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books and family photos. Richard sat behind a massive desk, looking every inch the powerful CEO. Eleanor was there too, sitting in a leather chair, her expression unreadable. Tyler and Melissa arrived moments later. Thank you all for coming, Richard said once everyone was seated. His gray eyes, so like Harrison's, surveyed them all. I have some important matters to discuss. Harrison's hand found Brianna's, squeezing tight. She squeezed back, trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. First, Richard continued, I want to address the rumors that have been circulating in business circles. Yes, Harrison's engagement to Clarissa Wu was dissolved. Yes, this caused complications. But those complications have been resolved to everyone's satisfaction. We know all this, Dad, Tyler interjected. Why the dramatic meeting? Because there are still questions about the legitimacy of Harrison's current engagement. Richard's gaze landed on Brianna. Questions I feel obligated to address before this goes any further. Brianna's stomach dropped. Here it was. The moment she'd been dreading. Richard, Eleanor warned. We discussed this. And I told you I needed to be certain. Richard pulled out a folder. I hired a private investigator to look into Miss Mitchell's background. Harrison stood abruptly. You did what? I did what was necessary to protect this family. Richard remained calm, unmoved by his son's anger. And what I found was interesting. Brianna Mitchell, age 25, applied for an entry-level position at Blackwell Corporation on the same day she supposedly arrived for her engagement arrangement. Her application was never processed. She was never scheduled for an interview. The room went silent. Brianna felt everyone's eyes on her. Which means, Richard continued, that the story about her being Harrison's arranged bride was a fabrication. She walked into the wrong office, Harrison made an assumption, and they decided to maintain the deception. Dad, Tyler said quietly, please tell me you didn't call us here to humiliate Brianna in front of the family. I called you here for the truth. Richard looked at Harrison. I need to know, son. Did you pay her to pretend to be your fiancé? The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Harrison's hand tightened on Brianna's. Yes, Harrison said finally. At first, she walked into my office by accident on the day Clarissa was supposed to arrive. I had a crucial business dinner. I was desperate. I paid Brianna to attend as my fiancée for one evening. Melissa gasped. Tyler's face fell. Eleanor's expression remained carefully neutral. But that was weeks ago, Harrison continued, his voice strong. What started as a business arrangement became something real. I fell in love with her. Actually, genuinely fell in love. And she fell in love with me. Whatever this began as, it's real now. Is it? Richard challenged. Or is she still on the payroll, playing an extended role? Brianna stood, finding her voice. I'm not on anyone's payroll, Mr. Blackwell. Harrison paid me for one dinner, that's true. He also paid my mother's medical bills, which I'm grateful for. But I moved into the penthouse because I wanted to. I said yes to his proposal at the party because I meant it. I love your son. Not his money, not his status. Him. Easy words to say, Richard observed. Maybe. But they're true. Brianna met his gaze steadily. I understand why you're suspicious. Our story is unconventional. But some of the best love stories start in unexpected ways. Harrison and I found each other by accident, but we chose each other deliberately. That's what matters. She's right, Eleanor spoke up for the first time. Richard, you and I had an arranged marriage. We didn't marry for love. We married for family alliance, for business. And we built something good from that foundation. Why can't Harrison do the same? Because our arrangement was honest, Richard countered. We knew what we were signing up for. Harrison's relationship started with deception. It started with desperation, Harrison corrected. Mine and hers. But it grew into something neither of us expected. Something worth fighting for. Richard leaned back in his chair, studying them both. I'm not trying to destroy your relationship, Harrison. I'm trying to protect you. Protect this family. If this arrangement is legitimate, if you truly love each other, then prove it. How? Brianna asked. Walk away from the money. From the penthouse, the lifestyle, all of it. Go back to your apartment, your job search, your normal life. If Harrison's love survives without the luxury, without the financial security, then I'll believe it's real. The suggestion felt like a slap. Brianna's mind raced. Without Harrison's financial support, she'd be back where she started. Struggling with bills, worried about her mother, uncertain about the future. But she'd also be proving something important. To Richard, to herself, to everyone who doubted them. Okay, Brianna said before Harrison could protest. I'll do it. Brianna, no, Harrison said urgently. You don't have to prove anything. But I want to. She turned to face him. Not because I doubt us. Because I want your father to see what I already know. That what we have is real, with or without money. This is ridiculous, Tyler interjected. Dad, you can't ask her to give up her entire life to prove something. I'm not asking her to give up anything permanently, Richard said. Just to demonstrate that her commitment to Harrison exists independent of financial considerations. 1 month. If after 1 month of living separately, supporting herself, she and Harrison still want to be together, I'll give them my full blessing. And my mother's medical bills? Brianna asked quietly. Will continue to be paid. I'm not a monster. Richard's expression softened slightly. I'm not trying to hurt you, Miss Mitchell. I'm trying to protect my son from making a mistake based on guilt or obligation or temporary emotions. Eleanor stood, crossing to where Brianna sat. She took Brianna's hands in hers. You don't have to do this, dear. Don't let him bully you. He's not bullying me, Brianna said, though part of her wondered if that was true. He's asking reasonable questions. And I can answer them. Brianna, Harrison tried again. Please. We don't need to prove anything to anyone. But maybe we need to prove it to ourselves. Brianna looked at him, seeing the pain in his eyes. Harrison, what if your father is right? What if we've been caught up in the drama and the intensity of everything? What if we need some space to figure out what's real? I know what's real, Harrison said desperately. You. This. Then a month apart won't change that. She cupped his face in her hands. If we can survive a month of normal life, of being ourselves without the arrangement and the performances, then we'll know for certain. And your father will know too. Harrison looked like he wanted to argue further, but something in Brianna's expression stopped him. If this is what you want. It's what I need. To be sure. The decision made, Richard outlined the terms. Brianna would move back to her apartment the next day. She and Harrison could communicate but couldn't see each other in person. She would find her own employment, support herself without financial help from Harrison or the Blackwell family. After 30 days they would reassess. The drive back to the penthouse was silent. Harrison stared out the window, his hand still holding Brianna's but his mind clearly elsewhere. When they finally spoke, both started at the same time. I can't believe. I'm sorry. They stopped, then Harrison continued. I can't believe my father did that. Put you in that position. Made you choose between proving yourself and our relationship. He's protecting you, Brianna said. I understand that. And honestly, Harrison, maybe he has a point. We went from strangers to engaged in a matter of weeks. We've been living in a bubble of luxury and performance. Maybe we need to see if what we have can survive in the real world. I already know it can. But I need to know. Brianna's voice was gentle but firm. I need to know that I'm not just grateful, that you're not just guilty, that this is actually love and not just convenience wrapped up in pretty words. Harrison pulled the car over suddenly, turning to face her fully. Brianna Mitchell, I am completely, desperately in love with you. Not because you're convenient. Not because of guilt or gratitude or any logical reason. I love you because you walked into my office and somehow saw past every wall I'd built. Because you challenge me and support me and make me want to be better. Because when I think about my future, I can't imagine it without you. Tears streamed down Brianna's face. I love you too. So much it scares me. Which is exactly why I need to do this. I need to know that loving you isn't just the result of the most intense weeks of my life. I need to know it's real outside this bubble we've been living in. And in a month, when you realize I'm right, that this is absolutely real, what then? Then we come back together. Stronger. More certain. With your father's blessing and zero doubts. Harrison pulled her into his arms, holding her like he'd never let go. This is going to be the longest month of my life. Mine too, Brianna whispered against his chest. That night, they packed Brianna's belongings in painful silence. The clothes, the jewelry, the small personal items she'd accumulated. Everything was carefully boxed up, ready for the move tomorrow. The sapphire ring sat on the bedside table, waiting to be returned. Keep it, Harrison said when he saw her looking at it. I can't. It's a family heirloom. It's yours. I gave it to you. Real engagement or not, that ring belongs on your finger. He picked it up, sliding it onto her hand one more time. When this month is over, when we've proven to my father and everyone else what we already know, I'm going to propose to you again. Properly. And you're going to keep wearing this ring for the rest of our lives. Brianna looked at the sapphire, the way it caught the light and threw blue shadows. Promise. I promise. They spent their last night together wrapped in each other's arms, neither wanting to sleep, both wanting to hold on to these final hours. When morning came too soon, Harrison helped carry boxes down to the moving truck. He held her hand as they rode to her old apartment, neither speaking, both lost in thought. The apartment looked smaller than Brianna remembered. Shabbier. Less like home and more like a reminder of everything she'd temporarily escaped. But it was hers. Her space. Her life. I'll call you tonight, Harrison said at the door, his voice rough with emotion. You better. Brianna tried to smile. And Harrison, this isn't goodbye. It's just, see you in a month. See you in a month, he echoed. Then he kissed her, long and deep and full of promise. When he finally pulled away, both had tears in their eyes. Brianna watched from her window as Harrison's car drove away, taking with it the fairy tale life she'd been living. The penthouse, the luxury, the escape from reality. All of it gone. She was back where she started. Except this time she had hope. She had love. She had a future worth fighting for. And she had 30 days to prove it. The first day back in her apartment was the hardest. Brianna woke up in her old bed, the mattress less comfortable than she remembered, the sounds of the city louder. Her phone sat on the nightstand, silent. Harrison had agreed to wait until evening to call, giving them both space to adjust. She made coffee in her tiny kitchen, the process feeling both familiar and foreign. For weeks ago this had been her entire world. Now it felt like a costume she'd outgrown, ill-fitting and uncomfortable. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Doctor says I'm responding well to treatment. See you Sunday?" At least that hadn't changed. Her mother was still thriving, still fighting, still hopeful. Brianna clung to that. Some things had survived the fairy tale's ending. She spent the morning applying for jobs online. Administrative positions, retail work, anything that might hire quickly. Each application felt like a step backward, but Brianna reminded herself this was temporary. Necessary. A test she needed to pass. By noon she'd received 3 rejection emails and 1 request for an interview. A coffee shop 2 blocks away needed a barista. It wasn't glamorous, but it was work. She emailed back immediately, confirming her availability. Her phone rang at 6 o'clock sharp. Harrison's name appeared on the screen and Brianna's heart leapt. "Hi," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. "Hi." Harrison's voice was warm, familiar, home. "How was your first day?" "Strange. Lonely. But okay." Brianna settled onto her couch. "How about you?" "Terrible. The penthouse feels empty. I tried working late, but I kept looking up to tell you something and you weren't there." He paused. "I hate this, Brianna. I hate that we're doing this." "I know. Me too. But it's only 30 days. "Only," Harrison repeated dryly. "The longest 30 days in history." They talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. Harrison told her about a disastrous board meeting. Brianna described her job interview at the coffee shop. They avoided the heavy topics, the questions hanging between them, the fear that maybe Richard had been right. "I miss you," Harrison said when they finally had to hang up. "So much it physically hurts." "I miss you too. But we can do this." "I know we can. Doesn't mean I have to like it." After they hung up, Brianna stared at her phone for a long time. She wanted to call him back, to tell him to come get her, to end this ridiculous test. But she didn't. She needed to see this through. The next few days fell into a routine. Brianna started her job at the coffee shop, learning to operate the complicated espresso machine, memorizing drink orders, forcing smiles when her feet ached and her heart hurt. She came home to her tiny apartment, talked to Harrison every evening, and tried not to count down the days. Tyler called on day 5. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," Brianna lied. "You're a terrible liar. Harrison is miserable too, by the way. He's working 18-hour days trying to distract himself. Melissa is threatening to stage an intervention." "How is Melissa? And the baby?" "Both great. Morning sickness is brutal, but she's handling it." Tyler paused. "Brianna, can I say something? This test Dad is putting you through, it's not fair. You shouldn't have to prove your love by suffering." "I'm not suffering. I'm just being myself again." "Are you?" "Because from where I'm standing, you seem pretty miserable without my brother." Tyler had a point, but Brianna couldn't admit it. "It's only been 5 days. 25 to go." Tyler sighed. "Just know that Melissa and I are rooting for you both. And if you need anything at all, you can call us. Dad's rules don't apply to us." After they hung up, Brianna felt slightly better. She had allies in the Blackwell family. People who believed in her relationship with Harrison even when doubt crept in. Eleanor called on day 10. "I'm coming to visit you." "Mrs. Blackwell, I don't think that's allowed." "I don't care what Richard allows. You're still my grandson's fiancée and I want to see you." Eleanor's tone brooked no argument. "I'll be there in an hour." When Eleanor arrived, dressed in a beautiful purple suit and carrying a basket of food, Brianna felt tears prick her eyes. The older woman hugged her tightly. "Let me see this apartment you've been living in," Eleanor said, setting the basket on the counter. She explored the small space without judgment, commenting on Brianna's book collection and the photos of her mother. When she finally sat on the couch, she patted the seat beside her. "Talk to me, dear. How are you really?" "The dam broke." Brianna told her everything. The loneliness, the doubt, The fear that maybe she and Harrison had been living in a fantasy. The guilt over the lies they'd told. The uncertainty about whether love could survive reality. Eleanor listened patiently, then took Brianna's hands. "Can I tell you a story?" "Of course." "When Richard and I married, it was purely business. Our families needed the alliance. We barely knew each other. On our wedding day I cried. Not happy tears. Scared, trapped tears. I thought I'd made a terrible mistake." Brianna squeezed her hands, encouraging her to continue. "It took us 2 years to fall in love. 2 years of learning each other, compromising, building something from nothing. Some days I wanted to give up. Run away. Go back to my old life." Eleanor smiled sadly. "But I stayed. And gradually what started as obligation became genuine affection. Then respect. Then love. Real, deep love that lasted until he passed away 10 years ago." "I didn't know," Brianna whispered. "Most people don't. They see the successful marriage, the happy family. They don't see the work that went into building it." Eleanor brushed a tear from Brianna's cheek. "What you and Harrison have started unconventionally, but that doesn't make it less real. It just means you're building your foundation in a different order. Love first, then the practical parts. What if Richard is right? What if we're just caught up in drama? Then you'll figure that out. But Brianna, I've lived a long time. I know what real love looks like. And I see it every time you and Harrison look at each other. You're fighting for something worth having. Don't let doubt steal that from you." After Eleanor left, Brianna felt stronger. More certain. She could do this. They could do this. Harrison called that evening with news. "I had lunch with Clarissa and Daniel today. How did it go?" "Really well, actually. They're happy. Genuinely happy. Daniel started his new position at Columbia. Clarissa's family is still adjusting, but they're coming around." Harrison paused. "They asked about us. When I told them about my father's test, Clarissa said something interesting." "What?" "She said that real love always costs something. That anything worth having requires sacrifice. And that if we're willing to suffer through this separation to prove something to others, imagine what we'll be willing to do for each other when it's just us." Brianna absorbed that wisdom. "She's surprisingly insightful." "She is. I think we all underestimated her." Harrison's voice softened. 17 days left, Brianna. I'm counting each one." "Me too." The days began to blur together. Work at the coffee shop, evening calls with Harrison, visits from Tyler and Melissa, who were becoming genuine friends. Brianna's mother came home from the hospital on day 15, finally stable enough for outpatient treatment. They spent an afternoon together, Brianna carefully avoiding details about why she was back in her apartment. "You seem different," her mother observed. "Sadder, maybe." "Just adjusting," Brianna said evasively. "It's the CO boy, isn't it? The one who was paying your bills." Her mother's eyes were knowing. "You fell in love with him. There was no point denying it." "I did. We did. But it's complicated. Love usually is." Her mother squeezed her hand. "But baby girl, if he makes you happy, if he treats you right, if he sees you for who you really are, then fight for him. Don't let complications steal joy." On day 20, Brianna was working the morning shift when Richard Blackwell walked into the coffee shop. She nearly dropped the cup she was holding. "Mr. Blackwell," she said, forcing professionalism. "What are you doing here?" "Observing." He ordered a black coffee, then sat at a corner table. For the next 2 hours, Brianna worked with Harrison's father, watching her every move. She took orders, made drinks, cleaned tables, handled difficult customers with patience. All while feeling his assessing gaze. When her shift ended, Richard was still there. "Sit with me for a moment," he requested. Brianna sat, exhausted and defensive. "What do you want?" "To apologize." Richard's expression was softer than she'd ever seen it. "I've been watching you. Tyler sends me updates. Eleanor tells me stories. Even my own assistant mentioned seeing you applying for jobs online during your lunch breaks. You're working hard, supporting yourself, proving you don't need the Blackwell money. That was the point, wasn't it?" "It was. But I also see how miserable my son is without you. How he stares at his phone waiting for your evening calls. How he's lost weight, stopped sleeping properly, become a shadow of himself. And I realize I made a mistake." Brianna's heart raced. "What kind of mistake?" "I tested you because I was scared. Scared that someone was taking advantage of Harrison's guilt and loneliness. Scared that our family would be hurt by another calculated arrangement." Richard's gray eyes, so like his son's, met hers. "But you're not calculating. You're genuine. Real. You love my son for who he is, not what he has. And that's rare. Precious. So what are you saying? I'm saying the test is over. You've proven everything I needed to see. Go back to him, Brianna. Make my son happy again. Tears streamed down Brianna's face. We agreed on 30 days. There's still 10 left. Forget the 30 days. I was wrong to impose that timeline. Richard stood, leaving money on the table. Harrison doesn't know I'm here. He wouldn't approve of me interfering. But I'm his father. I'm allowed to meddle when it means his happiness. After Richard left, Brianna sat alone in the coffee shop, processing everything. The test was over. She could go back to Harrison, back to the penthouse, back to the life they'd been building together. But part of her wanted to finish the 30 days. To prove to herself that she could do it. That she was strong enough to survive without luxury, without shortcuts, without help. She called Harrison that evening with trembling hands. Your father came to see me today, she said after they'd exchanged greetings. He what? Harrison sounded furious. What did he say? Did he threaten you? The opposite. He apologized. Said the test is over. Told me to come back to you. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to do? I want to finish the 30 days, Brianna admitted. Not because I doubt us. Because I need to know I completed what I started. That I'm strong enough to stand on my own before I stand beside you. You're already strong enough. You've always been strong enough. Maybe. But I need to prove it to myself. Brianna took a deep breath. 10 more days, Harrison. Then I'm coming home. To you. For real. Home, Harrison repeated, and she could hear the smile in his voice. I like that. Our home. Our home, Brianna agreed. 10 more days. She could wait 10 more days. After everything they'd been through, 10 days was nothing. The final 10 days crawled by with agonizing slowness. Brianna worked her shifts at the coffee shop, saved every penny she earned, and marked off days on a calendar sheet hung by her bed. Harrison called every evening without fail, sometimes twice a day when the waiting became unbearable. I'm planning something, he told her on day 28. For when this is over. Will you let me surprise you? I hate surprises, Brianna teased. But for you, I'll make an exception. Good. Because this one is going to be epic. On the morning of day 30, Brianna woke with butterflies in her stomach. Today was the day. By evening, she'd be back with Harrison. Back home. She dressed carefully for her final shift at the coffee shop, a bright red dress that made her feel confident and ready. Her coworkers had planned a small goodbye party during her break. They'd become friends over the past month, these people who knew nothing about billionaires or fake engagements or complicated love stories. To them, she was just Brianna, the girl who worked hard and always smiled and was leaving for something better. You'll have to come visit us, her supervisor said, hugging her goodbye. Tell us all about your new adventures. I promise, Brianna said, meaning it. She was wiping down tables after her shift when the coffee shop door opened. Harrison walked in, looking slightly out of place in his navy blue suit among the casual afternoon crowd. But his eyes were only for her. You're early, Brianna said, her heart racing. I wasn't expecting you until tonight. I couldn't wait any longer. Harrison crossed the room, not caring about the curious stares of other customers. 30 days. I did what your father asked. We both did. And now I need you to come with me. Where are we going? You'll see. Do you trust me? Always. A sleek black car waited outside. Harrison opened the door for her, and Brianna slid inside, feeling the familiar luxury after a month of subway rides and walking. The driver headed toward the outskirts of the city, away from the penthouse, away from everything Brianna recognized. Harrison, seriously, where are we going? You'll see. 5 more minutes. They pulled up to a beautiful property on the waterfront. A house, not an apartment or penthouse, but an actual house with gardens and windows and character. Harrison led her up the front path, pulling out keys. What is this? Brianna asked as he opened the door. A possibility. Harrison guided her inside. The house was stunning, all light and open spaces, hardwood floors and built-in bookshelves. I bought it last week. I wanted a place that could be ours, not just mine. Where we could build something real. Brianna walked through the rooms, each more beautiful than the last. The kitchen had a breakfast nook overlooking the garden. The living room had a fireplace and comfortable furniture. Upstairs, bedrooms with views of the water. You bought a house, she said, returning to where Harrison waited in the foyer. I bought a future. He took both her hands. These past 30 days have been torture. Worse than torture. Every morning I woke up without you, every evening I went to bed alone, Every meal I ate in that empty penthouse reminded me that money and luxury mean nothing without someone to share them with. Harrison. Let me finish. Please. He took a deep breath. I told you before that I loved you. That I couldn't imagine my life without you. But I want to be more specific. I love the way you hum while you read. I love how you always save the best bite of food for last. I love your laugh, your stubbornness, the way you see good in everyone. I love that you walked into the wrong office and changed everything. Tears streamed down Brianna's face. I don't want an arrangement, Harrison continued. I don't want a fake engagement or a business transaction. I want a real marriage, a real life, with you. Building something together from the ground up. This house can be our fresh start. Our new beginning. He got down on one knee, pulling out the sapphire ring. Brianna Mitchell, will you marry me? For real this time. No contracts, no arrangements, just love. Just us. Will you build a life with me? Yes, Brianna sobbed, laughing through her tears. Yes, absolutely yes. Harrison slid the ring onto her finger where it belonged, then stood and pulled her into his arms. The kiss was everything their first kiss should have been. Real, passionate, full of promise and possibility. I have one more surprise, Harrison said when they finally broke apart. Come on. He led her to the backyard where a small gathering waited. Tyler and Melissa were there, beaming. Eleanor sat in a chair, tears in her eyes. Richard stood beside her, looking uncharacteristically emotional. Even Clarissa and Daniel had come, holding hands and smiling. They all know? Brianna asked. Everyone knows. The real story, I mean. I told them everything. The wrong office, the arrangement, how we fell in love despite it all. Harrison squeezed her hand. No more lies. No more performances. Just truth. Eleanor stood, crossing to embrace Brianna. Welcome to the family, dear. Officially this time. Richard extended his hand. I'm sorry for making you prove yourself. You've shown more grace and strength than I had any right to expect. Thank you, Brianna whispered. For caring enough about Harrison to make sure he was making the right choice. I don't think he's making a choice at all, Richard said, glancing at his son. I think he's following his heart. Finally. The afternoon turned into evening. They sat in the garden, eating food Tyler had ordered, drinking champagne, celebrating the engagement that was finally real. Melissa shared ultrasound photos. Clarissa told funny stories about her first weeks with Daniel. Tyler teased Harrison mercilessly about being whipped. I'm so happy for you, Clarissa said quietly to Brianna when they had a moment alone. What you did, walking away to prove your love was real. That took courage. And it showed Harrison what you already knew. That love survives hardship. Gets stronger from it even. Thank you, Brianna said. And thank you for understanding. For being gracious about everything. We both got what we wanted in the end, Clarissa replied, glancing at Daniel. Sometimes the wrong thing leads you to the right thing. Your wrong office, Harrison's wrong assumption. All of it was perfectly wrong in the best way. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Harrison pulled Brianna aside. Happy? He asked. Incredibly. You. More than I ever thought possible. He wrapped his arms around her waist. So what do you think? About the house? About building a life here? I think it's perfect. But Harrison, can I add something? Anything. I want to finish my degree. Go back to school, become a teacher like I planned. I know it means less time together, more complications. It means you're following your dreams, Harrison interrupted. Which I fully support. We'll figure out the logistics. Make it work. Whatever you need. And I want to keep working. Not at the coffee shop necessarily, but somewhere. I need to contribute, to feel useful. Done. We'll be partners in everything. Equal footing. Brianna looked up at him, this man who'd become her whole world in the most unexpected way. I love you, Harrison Blackwell. So much it scares me sometimes. Good. 'Cause I love you more. And I plan to spend the rest of my life proving it. As they stood in their new garden, surrounded by family and friends, watching the sun set on their past and rise on their future, Brianna realized something profound. Sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes getting lost leads you exactly where you need to be. Sometimes the wrong office is actually the right door. And sometimes, love finds you when you're not even looking for it. 3 months later, Brianna stood in her new home office, surrounded by textbooks and course materials. She'd re-enrolled at university, taking classes online while working part-time at a tutoring center near their house. The schedule was demanding, but Harrison supported her completely, often helping her study late into the night. "You're going to do great," he said one evening, reviewing her essay on childhood development. "This is brilliant, Brianna. You have real insight into how kids learn. Coming from a billionaire CEO, that's quite the compliment." She smiled, saving her work. "How was your day?" "Productive. Tyler officially joined the company. He's taking over the international division." Harrison set down the essay. "Which means I can scale back my hours. Spend more time with my future wife." The wedding was planned for spring, 6 months away. Eleanor had taken charge of most arrangements, working closely with Brianna to create something beautiful but intimate. Just family and close friends. No performances, no pretense, just celebration. Brianna's mother was doing remarkably well. The treatments had worked better than anyone expected, and she was back to her old energetic self. She visited the house regularly, bringing food and advice and endless enthusiasm about the wedding. "I still can't believe how all this happened," her mother said one Sunday afternoon, helping Brianna prepare dinner. "My baby girl marrying a Blackwell. It's like something from a movie." "It kind of is," Brianna agreed, chopping vegetables. "Complete with the wrong office and the fake engagement and all the complications. But it worked out. That's the important part." The doorbell rang. Harrison answered it, returning with an unexpected guest. Clarissa Wu, dressed casually in jeans and a bright green sweater, carrying a bottle of wine. "Hope I'm not intruding," she said. "Daniel's teaching tonight and I hate eating alone. Thought I'd crash your family dinner." "You're always welcome," Brianna said warmly. Over dinner, Clarissa shared her news. She'd started her own business, a consulting firm that helped other women navigate family expectations and corporate pressure. "Turns out my experience being the arranged bride nobody wanted is actually valuable," she joked. "I never said I didn't want you," Harrison corrected. "I said I didn't want an arranged marriage. Big difference." "Fair point." Clarissa raised her wine glass. "To wrong doors and right outcomes. To love finding you when you least expect it," Brianna added. They clinked glasses, the sound ringing out like a promise. After dinner, Harrison and Brianna walked through their garden. The plants they'd put in were starting to bloom. Everything was growing, thriving, becoming beautiful. "Tyler asked if I'd be his best man," Harrison said. "Apparently he and Melissa want to renew their vows after the baby is born. Make it a bigger celebration." "That's sweet. Will you do it?" "Of course. Family is important. I forgot that for a while, but you reminded me." Harrison stopped walking, turning to face her. "You've reminded me of a lot of things, Brianna. How to feel, how to hope, how to let people in. You saved me." "We saved each other," Brianna corrected. "I needed you as much as you needed me. Still do." They kissed in the moonlight, comfortable and certain in their love. No more doubts, no more tests, no more proving themselves. Just two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way and chosen to build something beautiful from the chaos. The next morning, Brianna was working on an assignment when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Is this Brianna Mitchell?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Jennifer Wilson. I'm a producer for a podcast called Love in Unexpected Places. We tell stories about how couples met. A mutual friend mentioned your story, and I'd love to discuss featuring you and your fiancé on the show." Brianna's mind raced. Their story was unusual, dramatic, full of twists. But it was also deeply personal. She'd have to discuss it with Harrison. "Can I call you back?" Brianna asked. "I need to talk to my fiancé first." "Of course. I'll email you details. Think about it." That evening, Brianna told Harrison about the call. He was immediately skeptical. "Do we really want to share our story publicly? It's ours. Private." "I know. But think about it. How many people feel trapped by circumstances? Stuck in situations they think they can't escape? Our story could give them hope. Show them that sometimes the wildest risks lead to the best outcomes." Harrison considered this. What would we say? How would we explain everything? The truth. All of it. The wrong office, the arrangement, how we fell in love despite every logical reason not to. How we fought for each other even when it was hard. "You really want to do this?" "I think I do. But only if you're comfortable with it." They spent the next week discussing it, weighing pros and cons. Eleanor encouraged them. Tyler thought it was a great idea. Even Richard said it might be good for the family image, showing the Blackwells as real people with real struggles. Finally, they agreed. 2 weeks later, Jennifer and her team arrived at their house with recording equipment. For 3 hours, Brianna and Harrison told their story. The wrong office, the desperate arrangement, the fake engagement that became real. The complications, the doubts, the month apart that proved their love could survive anything. "This is amazing," Jennifer said when they finished. "Raw, honest, real. People are going to love this." The podcast episode aired a month later. Within days it went viral. Thousands of people commented, sharing their own stories of unconventional love. How they met in strange ways, found love in unexpected places, built relationships that defied logic. Brianna and Harrison were interviewed by news outlets, invited to speak at events, featured in magazines. But through it all they kept their focus on what mattered. Each other. Their home. Their family. The life they were building together. Spring arrived with bursts of color. The garden bloomed magnificently. Tyler and Melissa welcomed a baby girl they named Sophie. Brianna aced her final exams. Harrison closed a major business deal that had nothing to do with arranged marriages or family alliances and everything to do with innovation and vision. The week before the wedding, something unexpected happened. Brianna was working at the tutoring center when a woman approached her. She was elegantly dressed in a maroon suit, probably in her 50s, with kind eyes. "Brianna Mitchell?" the woman asked. "Yes. Can I help you?" "My name is Victoria Chin. I heard your story on that podcast. About walking into the wrong office, finding unexpected love." Victoria smiled. "I have a confession. I was supposed to be in that building that day. I had an appointment on the 72nd floor, same time as you. But I got stuck in traffic, missed my meeting entirely. I always wondered what would have happened if I'd made it on time." Brianna stared at her, processing this information. "You were supposed to be there?" "Apparently. Life had other plans. For both of us, it seems." Victoria handed her a business card. "I run a nonprofit that helps young women complete their education despite financial hardships. I'd love to talk to you about partnering with us once you finish your degree. I think you'd be perfect." After Victoria left, Brianna sat in stunned silence. The woman who was supposed to be in Harrison's office that day. The appointment that would have prevented Brianna from ever walking through those doors. All the tiny coincidences that had to align perfectly for their story to happen. It felt like fate. Like the universe conspiring to bring them together despite impossible odds. She called Harrison immediately. "You'll never believe what just happened." That night, lying in bed, they talked about coincidences and timing and how one small change could have altered everything. If Brianna had gotten off on the correct floor. If Victoria hadn't hit traffic. If Clarissa had arrived on time. If Harrison hadn't been desperate enough to make an offer. "Do you believe in fate?" Brianna asked. "I didn't used to," Harrison admitted. "I believed in logic, strategy, calculated decisions. But now I think maybe some things are meant to be. Maybe you were always supposed to walk into that office. Maybe we were always supposed to find each other. Even if it required the most complicated, dramatic path possible? Especially then. We're not simple people, Brianna. Why would our love story be simple?" The wedding day arrived bright and clear. Brianna stood in Eleanor's guest room, wearing a dress the color of cream with delicate lace sleeves. Her mother helped with her hair, pinning fresh flowers into the curls. Melissa adjusted her veil, tears already streaming down her face. "You look like a dream," her mother whispered. "I'm so proud of you, baby girl. So proud of the woman you've become." The ceremony was held in their garden, under an arch covered in spring flowers. Tyler stood beside Harrison as best man, looking sharp in his navy suit. Eleanor sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes. Richard smiled, genuinely smiled, maybe for the first time since Brianna had met him. As Brianna walked down the aisle, Harrison's expression took her breath away. Love, joy, wonder, all written across his face. No cold calculation, no guarded walls. Just raw, honest emotion. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began. The ceremony was beautiful, personal, filled with vows they'd written themselves. Harrison promised to support Brianna's dreams, to choose vulnerability over protection, to build a life based on truth and trust. Brianna promised to challenge Harrison, to never let him retreat behind walls, to choose love even when logic said otherwise. When they exchanged rings, the sapphire catching the sunlight and throwing blue fire, Brianna thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The wrong office. The desperate arrangement. The lies that became truth. The test that proved their love. All the complications and drama and impossibly twisted paths that had somehow led to this perfect day. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. "You may kiss." Harrison pulled Brianna into his arms, kissing her with a passion that made the guests cheer. When they finally broke apart, both laughing through happy tears, Brianna realized something profound. This wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning. The reception was intimate and joyful. Tyler's toast was funny and touching. Eleanor's was tearful and beautiful. Even Richard spoke, admitting he'd been wrong to test them, grateful they'd proven him wrong. As the evening wound down, Brianna and Harrison snuck away to a quiet corner of the garden. The fairy lights twinkled overhead. Music drifted from the house. Everything was perfect. "Mrs. Blackwell," Harrison said, pulling her close. "How does it feel?" "Right," Brianna answered simply. "Like everything finally makes sense. Even the crazy parts? The wrong office, the fake engagement, my father's test. Especially those parts. They made us who we are. Tested us, strengthened us, proved we could survive anything together." Harrison kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "I love you. So much. Forever." "Forever," Brianna agreed. As they stood in their garden, surrounded by the evidence of their love, Brianna heard a car door slam. She turned, surprised. Who would be arriving this late? A woman walked through the gate. She was striking, dressed in a royal blue evening gown, with sharp features and calculating eyes. Brianna didn't recognize her. "Harrison Blackwell," the woman said, her voice cutting through the peaceful evening. "We need to talk. About your father's real reason for testing your relationship. About the business deal he made behind your back. About the threat that's been hanging over your family this entire time." Harrison's body tensed. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows the truth. The whole truth." The woman smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "And I'm here to tell you that your fairy tale romance? It was built on more lies than you know. Lies your father told. Lies that are about to unravel everything." Brianna's blood ran cold. Harrison's hand found hers, gripping tight. Their guests began gathering, sensing something was wrong. Eleanor stood, confusion on her face. Richard's expression was unreadable. "You have 5 minutes to explain yourself," Harrison said, his voice controlled but dangerous. "Then I'm calling security." The woman pulled out a folder, identical to the ones Richard had used during his investigations. "5 minutes is all I need. Because once you see what's in here, everything you thought you knew about your family, about your father's test, about why he really wanted to make sure Brianna was genuine, all of that changes." "This is our wedding day," Brianna said, finding her voice. "Whatever you think you know, it can wait." "Can it?" The woman's eyes were cold. "Even if it means learning that Richard Blackwell had his own arranged marriage planned for Harrison? One that involved a business merger worth $10 billion? One that your relationship destroyed, costing this family more than you can imagine." Richard stood abruptly. "That's enough." "Is it?" "Because I think your son deserves to know that his father's test wasn't about protecting him from a gold digger. It was about giving you time to salvage a business deal that Brianna's existence ruined." The woman turned to Harrison. "Your father had you engaged to someone else. Before Clarissa. Before Brianna. A secret arrangement that was supposed to save the company from bankruptcy." The garden went completely silent. Everyone stared at Richard, waiting for him to deny it. To explain. To fix this. "It's not what you think," Richard said quietly. "Then what is it?" Harrison's voice was deadly calm. "Because right now, it sounds like you've been lying to all of us." "I was protecting the family," Richard insisted. "The company was failing. We needed capital fast. There was an opportunity with the Morrison family, a merger that required a marriage arrangement. I was handling it quietly, trying to keep you out of it until absolutely necessary. And then Brianna happened," the woman continued. "And suddenly you had to choose. Let your son be happy or save the company. So you tested her. Not to protect Harrison, but to buy yourself time to find another solution." Eleanor's face had gone pale. Tyler looked furious. Melissa held baby Sophie closer. Everyone was processing this revelation, these new lies stacked on top of old ones. Brianna felt like the ground was shifting beneath her. Everything they'd fought for, every test they'd passed, every moment of doubt they'd overcome, suddenly seemed tainted by manipulation she'd never seen coming. Harrison turned to his father, his expression colder than Brianna had ever seen it. "Is this true? All of it?" Richard met his son's eyes. "The basics are true. But my motivations weren't as calculated as she's making them sound. Yes, I had an arrangement in place with the Morrison family. Yes, your relationship with Brianna complicated that. But when I tested her, when I asked her to prove herself, it wasn't just about buying time. It was about making sure she was real. That she loved you for you, not for what you could provide." "And the company?" Tyler demanded. "Were we really facing bankruptcy?" "We were facing challenges. Significant ones. But I found other solutions. Restructured debt, sold off assets, made it work without sacrificing Harrison's happiness. Richard's voice was strained. I'm not the villain here. I was trying to protect everyone. By lying, Harrison said flatly. By manipulating. By putting Brianna through a test that was really about your business problems, not her character. The woman smiled triumphantly. Now you see. Now you understand what your family really is. What you've married into, Mrs. Blackwell. Lies upon lies upon lies. Who are you? Brianna asked again. And why are you really here? I'm Margaret Morrison, daughter of the family your father-in-law was trying to align with. The woman Harrison was supposed to marry before you stumbled into that office. Margaret's smile was sharp. And I'm here because I want you to know the truth. That your perfect love story was built on the ruins of my family's deal. That you cost us billions. That I've spent months watching you celebrate a relationship that destroyed my future. The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just about revealing Richard's lies. This was revenge. I'm sorry, Brianna said quietly. I never meant to hurt you or your family. Sorry doesn't fix bankruptcy, Margaret shot back. Sorry doesn't repair broken contracts. Sorry doesn't give me back what you took. We didn't take anything from you, Harrison said firmly. My father's deal with your family was made without my knowledge or consent. If it fell apart because I chose love over business, that's on him, not us. Easy to say when you're the one who got everything. Margaret's composure cracked slightly. You got the girl, the happy ending, the fairy tale wedding. What did I get? Humiliation. Financial ruin. A family that blames me for not being interesting enough to attract Harrison Blackwell's attention. Eleanor stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. Margaret, I understand you're hurt. But taking your anger out on my grandson and his wife on their wedding day is cruel. Whatever problems exist between our families, this isn't how we solve them. Then how do we solve them? Margaret demanded. How do I make this right? You can't, Richard said. What's done is done. But I can make amends. Morrison Financial needs capital? Let's talk. Real talk, not marriage arrangements or manipulative deals. Business. Clean, honest business. It's too late for that, Margaret said, but her voice wavered. It's never too late to choose a better path, Brianna said quietly. Trust me, I know. Harrison and I built our relationship on lies and arrangements, but we chose to transform it into something real. Something genuine. You can do the same with your life, your family's business. You don't have to stay trapped in anger and revenge. Margaret looked at her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, tears filled her eyes. I'm so tired of being angry. Then stop, Harrison said. Let my father help your family. Let us all move forward instead of staying stuck in the past. The tension in the garden slowly dissipated. Margaret accepted Eleanor's invitation to sit, to talk, to work through the complications. Richard and Tyler began discussing potential business solutions with Margaret's family. The wedding guests gradually returned to celebration, though the mood was more subdued. Brianna and Harrison found themselves alone again, standing by the flower arch where they'd said their vows just hours before. That was unexpected, Brianna said, trying to process everything. That's an understatement. Harrison pulled her close. Are you okay? This is supposed to be the happiest day of our lives, and instead we got blindsided by more family drama. I'm okay. Shaken but okay. Brianna looked up at him. Your father lied to us. Again. Are you okay with that? No. But I'm also not surprised. My father has always been complicated, always believed the ends justified the means. Harrison sighed. We'll deal with it. Figure out what it means for our relationship with him. But right now, on our wedding day, I just want to focus on us. Us, Brianna repeated, smiling despite everything. I like the sound of that. Me too. Harrison kissed her softly. Mrs. Blackwell, would you like to go inside and continue celebrating our marriage? Or would you prefer to stay out here and process more family drama? Definitely the first one, Brianna said firmly. I've had enough drama for one day. One lifetime, actually. They walked back to the house hand in hand, leaving the complications and revelations behind. Inside, their friends and family were dancing, laughing, celebrating. Tyler was teaching Sophie to clap. Melissa was crying happy tears again. Eleanor and Margaret were deep in conversation that looked surprisingly civil. Even Richard caught Brianna's eye and mouthed, I'm sorry. She nodded, accepting but not forgiving. They'd work through it. Eventually. When wounds were less fresh and emotions less raw. But tonight was about love. About choosing each other despite every complication, every lie, every dramatic revelation. About building something real from the most imperfect beginning. As the night wore on, Brianna found herself on the dance floor with Harrison, swaying to slow music, surrounded by people who loved them. The fairy lights overhead sparkled like stars. The garden smelled like flowers and possibility. Happy, Harrison murmured against her ear. Incredibly, Brianna answered honestly. Despite everything. Because of everything, Harrison corrected. We wouldn't be us without the chaos. He was right. Their story was messy, complicated, full of twists and revelations and dramatic moments. But it was theirs. And it was real. As midnight approached, they prepared to leave for their honeymoon. Friends and family gathered to send them off, throwing flower petals and shouting congratulations. Eleanor hugged them both tightly. Tyler gave Harrison a brotherly punch on the arm. Even Margaret approached, offering a tentative smile and genuine well wishes. I'm sorry for crashing your wedding, she said. I was angry and hurt and took it out on you. That wasn't fair. Apology accepted, Brianna said graciously. I hope you find your own happiness, Margaret. Real happiness, not arranged marriages or business deals. Thanks. Maybe I will. Margaret glanced at Richard, who was watching from a distance. Your father really is trying to help. I didn't expect that. He's complicated, Harrison said. But he does care. In his own controlling, manipulative way. They laughed, the tension finally breaking completely. In the car heading to the airport, Brianna leaned against Harrison's shoulder, exhausted but content. Their wedding day hadn't been perfect. It had been interrupted by revelations and drama and unexpected guests. But somehow that felt right. Felt like them. Where are we going, by the way? Brianna asked. You never actually told me where we're honeymooning. Italy, Harrison revealed. 2 weeks in Tuscany. Vineyards, old villas, pasta. Everything you mentioned wanting to see someday. You remembered that? I remember everything you tell me, Brianna. Every dream, every wish, every random comment. Because they all matter. Tears pricked her eyes. I love you so much. I love you more. And I'm going to spend the rest of our lives proving it. As the plane took off, carrying them toward their future, Brianna looked at the ring on her finger. The sapphire that had started as part of a performance, become a symbol of real love, witnessed every twist and turn of their impossible story. She thought about the wrong office, the desperate arrangement, the lies that became truth. She thought about tests and trials, separations and reunions, family drama and unexpected revelations. She thought about every complication that could have broken them but instead made them stronger. Their story wasn't a traditional fairy tale. There was no prince rescuing a damsel, no simple meeting and instant happily ever after. Instead, it was messy and complicated and absolutely real. And Brianna wouldn't change a single moment. Because sometimes the best love stories are the ones that make no sense at all. The ones that start with wrong turns and desperate choices. The ones that survive tests and trials and dramatic wedding day revelations. The ones where two people choose each other over and over again, despite every logical reason not to. That's real love. Imperfect, complicated, absolutely worth fighting for. And as Brianna drifted off to sleep, her hand in Harrison's, heading toward 2 weeks of Italian sunshine and the rest of their lives together, she smiled. Their story might have started in the wrong office. But it ended exactly where it was supposed to. Together.